right, we'll call the meeting to order. In accordance with the open meeting law, the board states for the record that this meeting is being recorded by NORCAM and may be recorded by other local media. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Good evening, everybody. We're actually going to start off with a statement, actually, by Mr. Gilberto before we go to public comment. I know you have your administrator's report, but I think it's important in light of what's going on with coronavirus that we make we hear from the town administrator on the efforts underway.
Sure. I wanted to offer an update for the community, and much of the information I'm going to share here I have shared previously via the town's website, and some of it we actually circulated through a reverse 911 that I'm sure a lot of residents received as well. But I'll start from the beginning. I wanted to offer an update relative to the town's response to COVID-19 or coronavirus, and the efforts that have been underway here in the town of North Reading. And this is in addition, this is basically information that I've previously released on the town's website and that we've been circulating over the past few weeks. Town officials continue to monitor the situation regarding the coronavirus. We've been meeting regularly, participating in State Department of Public Health conference calls, reviewing updates from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, as well as information from the Centers for Disease Control. More recently, as the state has been releasing additional information regarding presumptive cases, we've been working to educate ourselves as to what that means and what the obligations and responsibilities of municipal government are in terms of managing the case, to better inform ourselves so that we are prepared in the event that there is a presumptive case here in North Reading. At this point, we have not been notified of such this scenario, but we're obviously monitoring things, and we've seen that there have been a number of cases that have been identified publicly in the region. We've been in touch not only with the municipal departments, but also with the school committee, the school department, through the superintendent and his staff. We've been providing information and in discussions going back to the early part of February. Started with a flyer that we put out just to advise folks of best practices to protect oneself from any respiratory illness, and then additional updates that we've put out since then. The thing that I want to stress the most for our residents is what I think we've all been hearing from the state and national media, which is the best advice and the most consistent advice we are getting from state and federal officials is the importance of washing your hands often for 20 seconds, avoiding touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, which can be, I think, difficult for those of us with a habit of doing so, but I'm trying to get better at it. Cleaning things that are frequently touched in a particular space or workspace or otherwise, covering your mouth when you cough or sneeze, and staying at home if you are sick. And we're also advising folks to follow the recommendations to just be mindful of how you would take care of yourself or your loved ones if the virus were to start spreading within the community. In terms of our internal operations here, we've been working with our contracted cleaning companies to make sure that the expectations are understood and to develop tools to track their performance and ensure that they're doing what they need to do. And I know that there's been a substantial effort on the part of the school administration to educate their community with regard to the protocols that they follow as well. So this is something that we're going to continue to monitor and to discuss on a daily basis at this point. We've been having weekly meetings with a larger group with regard to it, and we'll do so more frequently if necessary. But I really wanted just to provide that opportunity to have an update for folks who may not have seen it on the town's website. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move right along to public comment. Is anyone here for public comment? Seeing no one, we're going to move on to board member reports. Mr. O'Leary?
I will pass the end.
Mr. Wallner?
I'm going to pass it in too.
Mr. Schultz?
Real quick, number of residents reached out to me regarding early voting, which is a nice thing to offer to our residents, but a number of residents voted for people that when it became time to be election day were no longer in the race. So early voting is nice. I don't think it takes the place of voting on election day. Because if you vote a week early, something can happen in that week before Election Day, and a lot of people casted votes in this town for people that had since announced that they weren't running, so. There's pros and cons to it, I'm glad we offer it, but I don't think it replaces going on Election Day. I just want to state that for the record.
Mrs. Gonzalez. And I'm all set, so let's move along to the proclamation for North Reading Dollars for Scholars.
Madam Chair, I move to proclaim March 9th through 12th, 2020 as North Reading Dollars for Scholars Week and to read the attached proclamation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. O'Leary. Would you like to read the proclamation?
Unless you would.
Doesn't matter.
Whereas the North Reading Dollars for Scholars is a group of hardworking, dedicated individuals, and whereas the NRDFS members have devoted both time and talent to the difficult task of seeking scholarship funds for deserving students, and whereas NRDFS is planning its annual phone-a-thon for the week of March 9th through the 12th, 2020, where high school students will contact all North Reading homes by telephone seeking pledges to the NRDFS Scholarship Fund. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of North Reading, do hereby proclaim the week of March 9th through the 12th, 2020, as North Reading Dollars for Scholars Week, and urge all citizens to open their hearts and their purses or wallets to the benefit of North Reading students who want to continue their education.
It's a great program. Do we have anyone from the program here that wants to speak about it? We don't, but, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gilbert.
So, Madam Chair, so tonight is actually the first evening for the program, so my understanding is that those who participated in it are contributing to that effort with their own
Great.
volunteer time. This was originally expected to be taken up at the February 24th board meeting, which was
Oh,
unfortunately
yeah.
canceled
We,
due to an internet outage, so.
We usually do have the,
Usually Kathy Akiavati comes and gives the pitch a little bit and suggests people contribute. Again, I would just like to state again, as I have in years past, that again, my two sons were recipients of it, and it certainly helps. I mean, cost of educating our children is extremely expensive, and every little bit helps, and that this has been ongoing since, I believe, the 60s. So, very successful program. A lot of dedicated individuals over the years have put in countless hours, and you'll be getting phone calls from kids from the high school, and again, I would encourage people, as I will be, to contribute. So, again.
no amount is too small, so contribute what you can. It's a worthy cause and a worthy group of volunteers. Mrs. Gonzalez, did you have your hand up?
No.
Oh, okay. Any other comments?
So turn your ringers on in case they call you during the
That's
meeting.
true, yeah.
I was gonna say, are they going by landlines?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they have for.
Yeah, because like my landline doesn't, I don't think most people don't have it.
I'm being told, yes, that they do.
Mostly,
Mostly landlines, it would appear.
Yeah.
which is diminishing.
So how can someone reach out? Is there, if they're not gonna get that call? There is a website, okay.
So it's, North Reading Dollars for Scholars, and
Thank you.
this is the big week and the big push.
Great.
All right,
Need a
so we have a motion and a second to signing that do we have a second to sign
Second.
that?
Yeah.
Mr.
Mr.
O'Leary
O'Leary.
seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Hi.
Unanimous.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
The website, as I see it, is www.northreading.dollarsforscholars.org for those at home or here.
Thank you. Great. All right, we are moving right along to our departmental budget hearings, and our first department is Parks and Rec. Welcome. Oh, get the light, I'm sorry. Shh. That's perfect.
I think she's trying to keep us in the dark.
Literally. And for-
Thank you. All right, well, I am Maureen
Stevens. I am the Department Head and Operations Director of the Parks and Rec Department. And we are a team of people at the Parks and Rec Department, and I wanted to start with some of the accomplishments that were on the narrative that I gave to the Finance and the Board of Select Board. Just to go over it really quickly, we did the capital paving project at Ipswich River Park. We did the walkways, we did the inner circle and the outer circle, so to speak. Cost of the project was $66,899, all from retained earnings that from our program and leagues, and so it came from our enterprise fund. We also did capital paving at the rec center, where we did some paving all around the rec center. That cost of the project was $25,946, same thing from capital. It was a capital paving project, which came from retained earnings. We were gifted the facility shed over by the Ipswich River Park gazebo from the Friends of. The value of the gift was $22,005, and that has been a large enhancement over there. Another accomplishment that we were part of was the Wall That Heal that came along. The Parks Department was hand in hand with the Veterans Department setting that up when it came to North Reading, and making sure every need was met for the Veterans Director, that whatever she needed, Marty and his crew made sure it happened. We also do our wine and food. We're going to do our wine and food again this year. It's going to be Friday, March 27th. There'll be a shameless plug at the end of the at the presentation. We also do the barbecue series. We're into our 23rd year for that. And Lynn Clemens, the Recreation Director, runs a phenomenal summerscape program for preschool and school-age children that is just growing and growing and growing, and they're just phenomenal programs. So that was our objective. Those were our accomplishments, and our objectives from here out are pretty much security to parks, ADA compliances, and upgrading of parks and playgrounds. That's pretty much on our plate for the upcoming next few years. So that's who we are. So we've got about 100 years' experience. The first 3 operations, Parks and Rec, that's the subsidy request from the town. Everyone underneath that, admin assistant, parks foreman, programmer, maintenance craftsman, park maintenance. That's pretty much our permanent crew, and we have up to 30 people in a given year. When it comes to, it fluctuates up to 30 when it's seasonal. Recreational programs, numerous. We have 3,261 member accounts with 7,466 members. This year we did 4,109 registrations. We offered 251 programs this year, between every different type of program you could think of. Summer programs, trips that go overnight, week, discount tickets. Summerscape, like I said, we did a pay it forward week. It was phenomenal. Like I said, Lynn, the Recreation Director, set that up. Very well received. They loved it. Pee Wee soccer right out here at the Town Hall field. So we use every field we can find. We use. Again, Town Hall field. Told them not to plow that day so that they could do that flashlight candy cane hunt with over 100 participants. Parks and field maintenance, permits and scheduling, almost 7,500 hours of scheduling, 265 permits issued, over 93 plus acres mowed. The special projects I've already went over. One thing I didn't say was the installation of heat at the Arthur J. Kenny Turf bathrooms that was put in after the project was installed, because it was far cheaper for us to do it than to come as part of the project, like thousands of dollars cheaper. So we take care of Benevento, Chestnut Street, Clark Park, Ipswich River Park, and all its glory here and everything that's going on. Celebrating 23 years in existence with rated 5 stars by Google Reviews. I get them every day, Google review 5 stars. Sometimes there's 4, but mostly 5. You wonder why they're 4, but. So Rita Mullen Field, that's used for many different things. It's varied use. Town Hall Field, as we said, there's certain things that we do, programs, special events. North Parish Park, that's pretty much just a passive area. Park Street's just an open field area that's not used. There's the Arthur J. Kinney Field that the Parks Department makes sure is taken care of and maintained to its best capabilities. Has all that, again, with the new bathrooms and storage. That was the bathrooms that were installed in 2018, phenomenal asset for the town. Community, if it's outside, there's usually somehow we're attached to it. They either ask us for help, ask us for some supplies, somehow, some way that we're involved in generally everything you see here. It's a lot of things that we help out with. North Reading Welcomes Program, that was generated by Lynn in the Recreation Department. We have over 700 delivered since February 2015. It's well established, and they do a great job getting all the items in there sponsored. Our concert barbecue series, children's entertainment. It's usually well-attended, award-winning bands that we have coming in. We're all booked for this season coming up. How we get the word out. This is where we're very good at it. Online registration software that we have. We have email blasts. We have the websites, Ipswich River Park, Facebook. We have an Ipswich River Park at Facebook, our own Facebook, all these likes. We have all kinds of sharing and what have you. Our email blast goes out to our 7,466 members. Brochures, 3 editions. We put it through the transcript as a handout. Cost is covered by sponsored advertising, banners, you name it. We get the word out. So people either are coming to our events or coming to the programs. We do our best to do it at low to no cost. So here we go. So revenues and income, this is how we get it. Leagues, parks, and fields. Enterprise is just our little concession stand, which is not our biggest glory. There's not a lot of revenue there. In recreation, recreation is the big buck area. So pretty much we expect increases in the youth summer clinics, decreases in football for leagues with all the concussion talks, and men's softball is going down, and tournament has come down. Parks and fields is decreases in turf rentals, but we're trying to turn those decreases into increases. Lynn's trying to put some more clinics there. Every year she gets another clinic that she can use over there. So pretty much bringing in about $448,000. This year we're going to need to use about $18,000 of our retained earnings. Last year was budgeted $50,000. That's all done. And that is going to be for a mower, to fund mower and cameras. The mower is $14,000, the camera's about $4,000. Subsidy request is $248,340 to fund the 3 directors' positions. Revenue projection $448, retained $18. Subsidy request totals of $714,550. Expenses, personnel, that's gone up quite a bit. Some of the shift has also been that instead of using vendors, we're using employees for our clinics. We're using teachers. They are employees. They're not vendors. So things have to shift from a service and supply to a personnel. Has to shift up. Services, supplies, other charges and expenses, small miscellaneous capital, indirect costs. That's for the Medicare costs and things that we have to pay. So large capital, we're not planning on any large capital. It's all little stuff. Last year was the walkways. So totals are revenue projections. So there's a little anticipated surplus. If all things go well, we'll have more. We're pretty conservative on our numbers to make sure that we hit them. And if we don't hit them, our expenses are lowered. If we don't hit the numbers, we don't spend the money. So there's our revenues. As you can see, the purple is recreation. Recreation just flies above everywhere else. Recreation numbers are just exceeding any leagues or anything. The recreation is leading the pack when it comes to our revenues and profits. So when we come down to it, our request for subsidy is just a 0.32% of the total general fund revenue of FY 2019. It's a tiny little fraction is what we're asking for, and it's generally funded, and we appreciate it. So that's all we're asking for is the 3 salaries from the town to fund. The rest we're hoping to get done ourselves. My shameless plug. I know there's a lot of chatter on Community Connection about kid spots and playgrounds and things like that, and we're very aware of it. It's been on our radar for playground upgrades, and Marty's working on that. As far as coming up with an engineered plan for kid spot, it's a difficult one where it has different levels, and it needs ADA compliance, so it has to be engineered specifically, so he's getting that in place. Things like this, when we make, $10,000 to $20,000 for fundraisers, they go into, our plan is to, this is what is for. So that's, we appreciate if the people come, this is where the money goes. And all the food is donated, and it's a good time. Those who go have a good time. So that is it on that. So I don't know if you have any questions where I flew through it, because I know you have a very big agenda.
Thank you for that. That was very, very concise. You probably take the prize so far for the fastest presentation. And one of the things that wasn't up there that I know you played a significant role in that I want to thank you for and the town appreciates is the Wall That Heals. And that really wouldn't have been possible without your effort. So I know that's veterans and we'll be,
Yeah.
getting to deal with veterans, but that was really something quite special that you made happen for the town. So thank you for that. Any questions for Director Stevens? Any questions on the budget?
None of the budget. I'm just curious on the programming. Are you finding trends, more adults getting involved? What kind of trends are you noticing over the last 4 or 5 years?
So the adults
Yeah.
is still a tough sell. Most people will do for their kids and not do for themselves. But we do have a steady, maybe 5 or 6 programs of adults that are really doing very well. I have some programs that are doing so well, but we have no place to put them. Like pickleball they're knocking down our doors to get more pickleball, but we only have so much time in this gym and there are no other gym availability. So right now, we're running what we can. We're using it every single night. So that's one of the places, if we had more facilities, we could definitely get more adult programming. That's a big one, pickleball. And we do have more adults coming to us for travel needs. That's been a really nice addition that's just grown a little bit lately. Maria's kind of taken that over, and she's got this group of people that are in some of the 55 and up housing in the area that keep coming back to us now for traveling, so that's grown, which is nice. That's new to us to have the growth in that area.
Yeah, I follow your, the insert you put, and it appears that adult programming is becoming more and more a part of your
The ones we
offering.
have are doing really well. It's a matter of finding, honestly, to find space to run any more programs and to find people that, people that are of the age that their children are still little, do more for their children than
Yeah,
for themselves.
sure. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Lynn, did I hear a rumor that they're gonna mark out the tennis court for pickleball?
We are, yep, that's gonna happen. So outdoor pickleball will be fine, but it's about people coming in for lessons. People that wanna learn the game and get going on the game, that's where we need to have
Oh, okay.
indoor facilities throughout the year. And not that many people can play in a court at a time, so that's what, you're only getting 6 to 8 people in a night when you're running it, so you just need more court time. But they'll be lined for this year, and we're actually looking into adding a storage box down at the tennis courts that will hold the pickleball nets and some pickleballs and that kind of stuff, so that if somebody wants to come and play, we'll have to work that all out, but that we would give them the combo so that they could get in and use the nets and so on, that type of thing, so.
Mrs. Hurlbut?
Are you talking about lining the courts at Ipswich River Park
Yes.
or at the high school?
Ipswich River Park.
Thank you. Any other
You
questions?
gonna sign up?
Any other questions of the finance committee? Any other comments?
The only other comment is, be careful when you're playing pickleball. You can get hurt.
You do?
Have you done a pickleball injury?
I did, yeah. I did. I'll admit it.
You gotta stretch, Steve.
You gotta stretch and, I may be more competitive in my mind than I am with my body.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for what you do for the town.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
And Ipswich River Park looks terrific. I mean,
Yeah.
those hot topping, and what a tremendous improvement. Really, it's come out very nice. Yeah.
Grass started going around the backfill too, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah,
We're
it's
lucky
great.
to have you guys.
Yeah. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And to get to all the volunteers too, the members of the Recreation Committee.
Yes. yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good team.
Great team.
Definitely a big team effort.
And great use of social media to get the word out to people about what your programming is or what events are coming up too. Let's keep up that. Good. That's great. Mr. Schultz?
Actually, on something else, but
Oh,
not for Parks and
okay.
Rec. Yep.
All right. Not on this budget.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may indulge my board members, I know Miss Nancy Parsons, I think I told you 7 o'clock for public comment, so you're here late because of me. But she has, if we could allow her to do a quick public comment, she has a very important food pantry update for us, if my board members would.
And it will be brief.
She's here late because of me, so I feel bad. I saw her sitting there.
Well, we can't predict that we'd be actually on schedule.
Didn't catch up with daylight savings.
Thanks, Andy. I am Nancy Parsons, and I showed up here not too long ago with Ellen McClansky to let you know about a project that we were launching to raise money to build a new home for the North Reading Food Pantry. And I'm pleased to tell you the community support for that has been amazing. But I'm not going to talk about that tonight. I think Ellen will come in a couple of weeks to give you an update on the food pantry, and you can ask any questions at that time. What I want to talk about is an event that is coming up in June. The Union Congregational Church will be observing its 300th anniversary in this town, and it's significant to the town because when the church called a pastor, a settled pastor, and built a meeting house, that permitted the community to actually lay the groundwork and be recognized as a town. So this is a great event for us, and we feel it's going to be a great event for you. Now, this is going to be on June 14th, which is Flag Day, and it's also Town Day. How appropriate to have an event up on Haverhill Street that is going to allow people to enhance their celebration of Town Day by connecting with the historic root of the town. So we're hoping that people will spend some time from Town Day to coming up the hill to the open house that we're going to be having from 1 to 3 or 3:30. And out of that time, we will carve a little program, a time to dedicate the food pantry, hand the keys of the building over to Ellen McClansky and the volunteers. And we hope that each of you will be there, because this building, the food pantry, is our anniversary gift to the town. It's to the community. And we hope that you will be there to to observe and participate. I know Mr. Gilberto knows about this and understands that he's going to represent all of us in accepting the gift. We will also be celebrating our anniversary. Have you ever seen 300 candles on a cake? We are optimistically expecting Governor Baker to be with us, as well as Senator Tarr, and of course, Brad Jones will be with us too. Maureen, dear, over there.
Hello.
You'll be there
Yes.
with your camera.
I will.
What a great photo op. Okay, so I am going to give each of you a save the date card, but you will be receiving invitations specifying the time so that you will know that you are welcome. And all of you are welcome. This is open to the whole town. Food. Congregational food is really good. There'll be hors d'oeuvres in the garden, all sorts of things. So thank you very much.
Hey, Nancy,
Thank you.
Nancy, before you step down, could you just give an update on the fundraising? How far you've gotten, how much we
Yeah,
need,
I
and where can
I
people,
was gonna- I don't want to take up your time.
real quick, where can people go to donate, and how much money have you raised so
Sure.
far?
We have about $145.
You can buy the microphone.
Can you go to the mic?
Yep.
Sorry.
Right now, the fund is about at $145,000 in the bank, and we have about more than $50,000 in pledged. And renovation has begun on the building. if you go by the building on Haverhill Street, you'll see that we're hard at work. We expect this to be open and finished on the 16th of June.
Where can people go to give money if they want to
Where
donate?
do people give money?
Yep.
Oh, Andy, that's such a hard question.
Is there a
I'm
website?
sorry that I don't have any cards
Okay.
with me. You can donate online. You can send the money to.
Where would
this-
people go? The North Reading Food Pantry website?
Yeah,
Okay.
the food pantry website. You can go online. The post office box is 625 or 626. North Reading. It's the food pantry's website. You can donate there.
Okay.
Or contact anybody who is involved in this. As I say, Ellen is going to come, and she is much more on the ball than I am.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
any other questions?
That's great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Guevara?
Thank you.
Just a couple of things first. I'm humbled by the invitation to accept on behalf of the town, but I think as we spoke, I'd love for the select board to participate in accepting that as well as volunteers.
We would too. We
Thank
would
you.
too. Maureen is going to be there with her camera, and it will be a gala event. I know you'll be busy with Town Days, but perhaps you can take a little time to run up the hill. This is really
Can we
an
walk?
historic event. Yes.
And secondly, through you, Madam Chair, for those interested in donating, the website is www.gofundme.com/F/NRFP Home Fund. So it's a GoFundMe page that can be searched online.
Thank you. We have our next order of business is the Youth Services Budget Presentation. We have Director Ford here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Is it okay if I sit at the table?
Sure.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for having me. For anyone who does not know who I am, my name is Jen Ford. I'm the Director of Youth Services here in North Reading.
Just talk into your mic so people can hear you.
Is that better? Yes, okay. Sorry.
That's all right.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and discuss the youth services budget for FY '21. We'll go right in, we'll start with the highlights. So, to be very honest with you, I can't possibly put everything that youth services has done on one slide. I've tried to pick out some of the highlights. We've increased the participants by 63%. While we've had 290 individuals enrolled, it's been in 442 slots, indicating that there are several kids who come from multiple programming. We've diversified and increased funding sources, so we've gotten a $1,000 grant award, as well as lots of, or several community and business in-kind donations. We've increased the Facebook followers by 38% and created an Instagram account. Youth Services actually co-hosted the first community intergenerational event here in North Reading, which completely aligns with North Reading's age-friendly initiative. Honestly, lots of the enrollment is record-setting numbers that we have not seen in the past. I personally facilitated Guiding Good Choices parenting curriculum for parents here in North Reading. We've increased participation in 75% of the age groups, increased the whitewater rafting trip, so done all kinds of things. You know, I would say one that's definitely worthy of a mention, high school senior created a group for all middle school and high schoolers who choose not to use, and basically what that is just trying to provide some fun activities. You know, I think we live in a world that we live with this facade that all teenagers use substances, And fortunately, that is not always the case, and even other youth often kind of think that way. So bringing them together and empowering them by knowing that they are actually not alone when they choose not to use, and that they should be applauded and can do some fun things while doing that. So now we're going to chat about some other numbers that aren't quite as exciting. So 417. In 2019, that is the number of, in the US, of mass shootings, which is defined as 4 or more people shot, not including the shooter. The next one. 45. In the first 46 weeks of 2019, there were 45 school shootings. That's one almost every week. 47,173. That is the amount of people in the United States in 2019 that died by suicide. I'd like you to imagine Fenway Park, sitting in Fenway Park, every seat in the park being full, and then another 10,000 people waiting outside to get in. That is the amount of people who died by suicide in 2019. I'm sure you're wondering, why are we discussing this? How is this related to youth services? Obviously, there's lots of factors that come into play with these situations. Mental health, substance use, but the one common thread is isolation and disconnection. It is scientifically proven that when we feel disconnected, we are more apt to use substances, to just demonstrate overall risky behavior in general, including harming ourselves or others. So this is a very important number, 3,879. According to the town charts, in North Reading in 2018, there were 15,642 of us, with youth representing almost 25%, which is that number. That is the number that I focus on, because youth services has the potential of serving nearly 4,000 youth here in North Reading. Realistically, can that be done by one person? So trying to do that, in some of the goals are to continue to create a sense of belonging for all. Again, circling back to the connection. Everyone deserves a place that they feel like they belong. It is human nature to be accepted and to feel like you have a sense of belonging. I'm also hoping to integrate a youth services assistant director, a part-time position. I'm also hoping to form a committee based of local group youth services departments. I, on a quarterly basis, go and there's a bigger group of us, but I'm hoping to kind of collaborate with some more local youth services directors, some of which have very proven success rates in local towns, and hopefully be able to benefit from some of their resources and tricks. We keep discussing the youth services store. I'm still very confident. It's a wonderful premise. It can generate revenue for the department. It can build life skills for the youth. They could be part of entrepreneurship, budgeting. There's so many layers to it. Honestly, the biggest barriers right now is space and manpower. Continue to provide preventative and awareness programming and events. Award a youth services graduating senior lottery, which I was too late into the game to make that happen this year. I'm hoping to make that happen next year. To continue to expand and enhance the intergenerational and youth-driven programming and events. Again, while Youth Services co-hosted the first community event, Youth Services has been doing intergenerational activities for as long as I've been here, and I believe prior to me being here. We do things with lots of seniors here in town, including Peabody Court. We've gone to Peter Sanborn Place in Reading. We're very committed to trying to bridge those gaps. And then to continue to diversify funding sources. So you ask, why would we need a youth services assistant director? Obviously, it would give the department the ability to expand and enhance every aspect of the department. Basic logistics. I get sick. Just even coverage, again, the manpower. To in theory, to provide more programming. I'm running out of days of the week. I still have lots of ideas and lots of great programming, and I have people who are asking me to do things. I've run out of days of the week and hours in the day. Hopefully by having more manpower, those would all be a reality. To enable and expand departmental skill set, including grant writing and overall development. You know, a lot of time is bogged down with logistics. You know, creating the programming, but then also finding space to do it, and all, you know, making sure there's snacks. A lot of those things, with some extra manpower, it would give me some time to focus on areas where I could actually focus on developing the department. And honestly, it's a great indication of the departmental growth over 15 years. This department has been around now for 15 years, and for it to be maintained with one person for 15 years is pretty impressive. And it's time to move to the next step.
So your request in your budget was $25,000 for part-time assistant. That's pretty much all I saw in terms of what you were asking for, other than the other cost of living adjustments. How many hours would that involve? Is it 20 hours a week, or?
I'm guessing it would probably be 19 and a half, because it would be under, so it would not be a benefit position.
It'd be 17 and a half using the averages.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Do you have?
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
Does anyone have any
All right.
questions?
Members have any questions?
Just on your number, the 3879,
Mm-hmm.
do you consider anybody under 20 years to be your service group? Or do you consider people in the school to be your service group?
Honestly, I consider everyone to be in my service group,
Okay.
because the best way I can serve my youth is creating a community for them. And that often includes their network and their support. Because again, even when it comes to building skills, if I'm building skills here in this building and then they're going home to a household that doesn't have those same skills, it's important to try to have those things bridged to their lives outside of anything that they're doing with me.
Okay. And then the second thing I would ask for is, if you're asking for another person, like, what have you been able to accomplish on your own, and now you're maxed out? And if you bring in this extra person, what do you project you'll be able to accomplish with that extra person? So we could have a, you know, kind of a deliverable based on what you think that extra person will help you to do. It'd be nice to know the differences between the two.
Okay. I mean, do you want me to answer that right now?
You can answer it now, or write a list, or whatever.
Okay,
You
I
know,
mean,
however
I
you wanna do that.
definitely.
But, you know, I'm throwing a request out that Jim would prepare, so you need not answer if you don't want to. But
Okay.
it would be handy for me at least to know.
Well, I
Okay.
think it's right here on this. She did review that with us. It would really be an expansion. I think what she's explaining is it would be an expansion of what services she's already providing, and
I guess that's what I'm asking
That
for,
she
is
can.
what are the services you're already providing, if you can be more specific. And-
What are the services that I'm currently providing?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm spending endless hours with youth. I'm building skills, leadership skills. I'm bridging the gap between generations. I'm giving a safe space to a lot of youth. You know, we live in a world that we want everyone to fit in this square box, and rather than either growing that box or modifying that box, we just keep trying to cram those square pegs into the round holes.
Yeah.
I very much focus on trying to create the square holes,
Yeah,
because,
I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm
No,
trying
no,
to
no, I
figure
know.
out, if in your 40 hours, how much time do you spend, you know, however you want to measure it. Like, this is how much time I spend doing this is how much time I spend doing that. And then if I had this extra person, they'd be able to spend more time doing this and this and this. You know, just broad strokes, doesn't have to be that specific, but
okay,
just so we get a good feeling for what you're asking for.
okay.
And how it could, you know, what extra services or what extra time you could spend doing certain activities.
Okay.
Not trying to be difficult, sorry.
And just on, in terms of that topic, you also, you're a regular participant in the CIT. What other groups are you a regular participant in here? You work closely with Amy Lutzkowitz, and
I do.
a lot of your services are certainly geared towards school-aged children, or our children attending public schools here, but and youth in general, even the kids that aren't in our schools, and starting up groups that they can participate in, and what other groups do you participate in here that serve the
Within, like-
community.
So,
Yes, yeah.
so I'm on the Social Services Action Team. I'm also on the K-12 Action Team, which is with the superintendent and bringing all of the, like presidents of the parent associations here in town. I'm also on the CIT, I'm on the coalition. Can I look at my list, because I'm sure I'm forgetting things.
Well, so I'm just, in addition to your departmental responsibilities, a large part of what you're doing for the town in this position is participating in these group and team efforts
I
to
mean-
address sort of critical needs that youth are facing. that
100%.
Some of us might not be very connected to, but they need to be addressed, so. And this was a role that grew from a volunteer committee into a department for us. And like the director said, it's been now 15 years, and I don't want to speak for you. I am so proud of and amazed by the work that you do, and I know it's a community that you participate with, but I clearly see that that it would definitely enhance what you're doing, and you're already doing amazing work, and I know you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
I'm Danielle Masterson. I'm Vice Chair of the Youth Services Committee. You also know me as the Head of Youth Services at the Flint Memorial Library. And I just want to say that while Jen's doing all this great work on these committees, it's taking her away from doing great programs with the kids. So if she's in a meeting of 4 or 5 different committees, she can't have a program at the same time. And so we all kind of fall into that where we're trying to do so many different things, and then with Jen's case, it really affects how much programming she can do. If I'm doing it with her, then I can be there and she doesn't have to be, but anytime something happens, she's unable to have a program, and it limits what we can actually offer those 4,000 kids in
So,
town.
in addition to administering the programs that you're administering, you're participating in all of these also amazing teams that are fulfilling needs, the town's needs, not just for youth, but for community action program, et cetera. So, Mr. Schultz, I'm sorry.
Just real quick, I know you have your programs, you have your day plan, but then you might get a call from a kid in need, and you're gonna drop what you're doing, take care of that youth, that he or she's in a real trouble spot. And that goes unnoticed, I think, with your job, the fact that I'm not gonna say you're a fireman, but you're putting out fires a lot with
All the time.
troubled youth. That does not get seen by the community, and it should. You guys do yeoman's work, and really are a great asset to the community. And
Thank you.
I think one of the best things I can say about you guys is that people don't see a lot of things that you do because you take care of things that otherwise would be a real problem. And I don't think the public sees that, and they should, and that's.
Well, you bring up a really great point. You know, I need to be honest with you. Preparing for this, I always get very stumped because I can't quantify a lot of the work that we're doing. I can't show you prevention. Again, I can show you national statistics, and we can keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't hit close to home. But the reality is, if we're not proactive, we're going to eventually be reactive. And again, with a lot of these things, it doesn't need to hit North Reading for it to impact North Reading. For our children, their reality is in 2019, in the first 46 weeks of 2019, there were 45 school shootings. For us to think that that's not impacting every child that steps foot into a school on some level, we're very naive, because that's their reality.
I guess one thing I was trying to say is you could be driving into work and then you're thinking, well, today I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. 10 o'clock, you get a call that a kid's in a crisis situation. You're dropping what you're doing and spending the rest of the day with that child.
100%.
I think that gets lost a little bit on, what we're saying, that takes you away from what you're trying to do. So it's not unrecognized by me. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
what you do.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Just being naive, and I think for everybody to know, like, I don't understand, like, where does that call come from? That you get called in to put out a fire like that? Like,
It could be
how
from
does
a
that
teacher,
work?
a guidance counselor, a parent.
They would call on you?
Absolutely, sometimes. The kids themselves. I have a work cell phone, and they all have my work cell phone, and, they text me on a very regular basis, and I have lots of kids who even if it's just a
So
little
you're a
pep
safe,
talk.
you're a safe
What's-
base. You're a
right,
safe base for them to
exactly,
come
and
to.
that's
I think
one
people
thing-
should know that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. It's important.
Thanks.
Questions from the Finance Committee? None? Any other questions from?
Again, just to add some of the comments here, I mean, this is a program which has evolved and grown substantially over the last, I can't believe it's 15 years, but it's hurtful, yeah. but it's true, and what we're seeing now is, first of all, the value of the success of the program and what's happening and how kids are reaching out, and there is a place for members of the community who have needs to go to. This is in collaboration with Jen's department, but also the police department, even the library, schools. They're working together now. Everything's starting to dovetail. And Jen's outreach is really directly with these kids. Many of them with some needs and, again, need a place and a safe place to go. And the program's working, but I think the resources are being stretched very thin. And, we have to decide, how can our money best be spent to address these needs? And again, these statistics are real, and as you said, we could be very naive if we don't think it can happen here, and it can. So, for the past boards and finance committee and town meetings that have supported this program, it should be applauded. But there's continued support that's needed and more support that's needed in order to address the issues that these kids face today. And again, these kids are going to become adults. Mm-hmm. And we're assisting the families and teaching them some life lessons which will bode well for them moving forward and for the next generation behind them. So it's money well invested. And to Andy's point, some of these things the community doesn't see as a whole. It's not that visible. But for those families that are touched, it's very visible and it's very real. For those kids, it's very real. So, I think, there's been a commitment here. There'll be continued commitment. If we can meet all the needs, I'm not so sure, but we'll do the best we can. And, but again, your efforts don't go unnoticed, and certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other colleagues? Any other comments?
I'll just add also, I know, because Jen and I have been on many meetings together, and she always has, it's gone beyond, you believe that it's the entire community, so you have brought in intergenerations, you have been very active in making that happen. And that it really is important for these kids to have those kind of connections with people outside of just their peer group. So it's always been appreciated by me that you didn't have to take that on, but you did. And I always believed it was the right thing. Then we're on the same page. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'll just add that the commitment to youth, in my mind, is as important as our commitment to the elderly, is as important as our commitment to our veterans. That's what community is all about. And what you are providing, even just informationals to parents, informationals to kids, it's broader than just tending to 1 or 10 or 15 children. It's tending to the rest of us too. How do we deal with this? What do we, the programs that you put on, not just for the youth, but for the parents, are really critical to everyone's success raising children nowadays. And I also want to commend you on your social media. I love it.
Thanks.
What's you should subscribe to it. It's YS, right? YS, and that's Youth Services, and what's?
Yes, no, there's.
You have to give that.
Yeah. Well, there's one that you friend as a friend, and then
yeah.
there's also a page that you can follow that's North Reading Youth Services. And if you're on Instagram, we do post on there as much as we can, and that's
great.
nr.youth. And if I post on Instagram, I will then throw it onto the Facebook
Oh, that's
page as well.
okay. That's
Yeah,
yours.
so that
All
might be why
right.
you're seeing
Love
that.
it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Well, it's oftentimes connected with whatever's programming is about to happen. So, great use of that. So,
Thank you.
do you any other questions, comments? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next up is actually library.
Oh, I missed the thank you sign. I'm sorry.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me properly?
We can hear you
Thank you.
perfectly.
Like to take this opportunity to thank you for giving us the chance to present our FY21 library budget. I'd like to thank the Friends of the Library and the trustees who have come in here in support of us this evening. And if I could please just introduce one person, I hope not to embarrass her, but we have a new staff member. It is not a new position, I just want to make that clear. She replaced the reference librarian who retired after 21 years. But I would like to introduce, please, Chantel Yell. She wants to we'd just like to say hello to her. She is our new department reference head.
Welcome.
She's started her third week and she has hit the ground running, and we are thrilled to have her. So I just wanted to introduce her. So, as we present our budget proposal for the library, and Dan's going to be my slide person. Thank you. Okay. Our FY21 budget request this year is $668,968. As you can see, our expenditure budget went down $331. However, our overall increase is due to staffing and due to salaries. There's step increases, which are decided by the union, and also we're asking to raise the rate of the substitute technicians. We are losing substitute technicians to other nearby towns because the pay is that much higher, so we're just asking for that to be at a more respectable level. They are professionals who are coming in and working with us, so we're hoping to have that raised. And also, again, as you'll see in the slides, we are going to ask for the new position. This will be the third year that we are requesting it. It is a true need for us as we move forward and expand the services at the library. So what's really driving the budget increases is mostly salary and position related. But on the other side, we work very, very hard in the operating budget with our expenditures to keep the costs down, and we look at every single thing we purchase, from databases to books to supplies, every year to make sure we're using them and that they're being used by the residents of the town. Thank you. Okay. So I wanted to take a minute because there are two new select board members who were not here at the last year's presentation to explain what a certified library is and why it is important. We belong to the Merrimack Valley Library Consortium. However, we are the library, the state agency is Massachusetts Library's Board of Library Commissioners, and there are certain things that we have to follow in the town, the library, certain criteria that we have to do to be a certified library. The budget must meet the municipal appropriation requirement, which our budget does. It has to be open to all residents of the Commonwealth. We can't charge anything for services, which we don't, whether they're programs or anything, we do not charge. And here is where we had our library expand to being open to 51 hours a couple of years ago. When the North Reading population went over 15,000 people, we had to be open more hours to continue to be certified. So those are the criteria that you have to follow in order to be a certified library. Yeah. The benefits of that are, the biggest one is the interlibrary loan. We have a consortium of 36 libraries that we can access books. Anyone can, from home, come into the library, request anything, and within a day or two have that material here where they need it for free. So it really reduces wait times for people because we can get things. It also saves the town money because if there's a book someone's interested in, we don't have to purchase it if we know that we can get it from any library. Besides the 36 libraries, we can also reach out to other libraries in the state, other libraries in the country. We have the ability to do that because we are a certified library. We are also entitled to state aid funds. It's not guaranteed. It's not something that we could hang our hat on to use every year because we don't know. It depends on the economy and where the money is put, but it averages about $15,000 a year, and we use that money for things that are not usually covered by the operating budget. If we want to buy new furniture or buy a new pass or something extra that will enhance the services, but it's not located in our operating budget. And there are also workshops and webinars that our staff listen to and attend that are really, really helpful. And those are all things that you get when you are a certified library. So it's really important that we stay certified, and we're happy to be certified. Programs and attendance. As you can see, the programming has expanded exponentially over the past few years. The number of programs that we're offering, the number of people who are attending our programs, they average 60 to 80 people per program. We have a national parks, planning your trip to the national parks program tomorrow night. We have 70 people signed up. So we're really working hard to find programs that are of interest to the community, all ages, all genders, and people are really responding. People attend our programs, and it's become very, very successful. So Flint Memorial Library by the numbers. I really get uncomfortable when I have to present things by numbers because I always feel like there's so much more to things than numbers, but people like icons and numbers, so. So the number of programs that we offered was 377. You can see our attendance was over 10,000. Database searches, that's talking about consumer reports online or Ancestry.com. Those are databases that people are using from the town. They can access them from their home. Ancestry has to be accessed from the library, but 22,000 searches were done last year on the databases that we provide. So they are being used, they are being appreciated, and we always check and see which ones are getting the most usage, and if not, we look for something else. Items borrowed, that's print items and e-content items. We put them together because they're people are borrowing things. It takes same amount of work in different directions no matter how the people are using things. So over 100,000 items were borrowed last year. And as far as the museum passes, we are grateful to the Friends of the Library. Because of their volunteer efforts, they are now purchasing all of our museum passes, and museum pass usage is up 9% from last year. So people in the town really save money by using the passes, and they're very, very popular. So we want to continue to do that. Yeah, I'll go back. Sorry. One thing that I wanted to say is that these numbers are great. It shows that we're a busy library and that we're working hard for the residents, but it doesn't show all of the value of the things that we do every day. And it's so important that the things, just like Jen was saying, the things that people don't see is that every day people come into the library and we help them to scan documents. Or now the government does not send out tax forms to people, so people are supposed to be getting them online. A lot of people, whether they don't have a computer or they're uncomfortable doing it, they're coming in every day asking us for help. Which tax forms? Where can we get them? Can we make copies of them? So we're helping people with taxes. The 2020 Census Bureau has asked the library to be a go-to spot where people can go and complete the census. So we're going to have a computer set up that people can log on and do their census there. So there are so many things that we do on a daily basis. We notarize documents. All these things are free. People can come in and get these services. Staff works every day doing these things, but they don't appear on numbers again. So it's just such a vital resource that we provide to the community that sometimes people don't see these. So we provide the numbers, but just know that every day we are helping residents do things they need to do. Apply for jobs, apply for health insurance. We don't actually do it with them, but we get them to those sites, and people really, really need help. Even logging into their email, you'd be surprised, and that's what we're there for. We're there to answer people's questions. We are there to help people to be prosperous and successful. So, got my little plug in there. Okay. Another thing we do for the community, I'm so proud that we have been working so hard on this, digitizing the North Reading transcript. The library has always been the repository for the North Reading transcript. We have hard copies, but it was never digitized, and now we have from 1954, when the newspaper started, sorry, I was corrected by Maureen, 1956, when the newspaper was started, through 2004, we have currently digitized, and we are going to continue with that. It has been paid completely by donations. It hasn't cost the town any money, and there is a website that you can log on, and we're going to do a big marketing push to show the town and everyone get excited about it in the spring, but we just wanted to mention it here, that is a searchable database, and we will continue to move forward with it so that the town will have all of the transcripts that they can keep and preserve North Reading's history. Thanks. Another way we help the
community. You're probably in a lot of that.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, I know. In the newspaper. Just type in Steve O'Leary.
Oh, he's been around. That wasn't a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing. No, probably my birth announcement.
Yeah.
Another way that we help the community is we just held a passport day where people could come to the activity room on a Saturday morning, and people from the Boston Passport Agency were there and did everything from the pictures to the applications, and 206 people applied for passports in that one day. So
it sounds like you could have done 300 that day.
I think so. I think we definitely could have. Yeah,
that was a great result.
It definitely was. And the Boston Passport Agency asked if they could come back, so they'd like to come back because they said it's the highest number of passports any library has done so
Wow.
far. So we're constantly looking for things that the community is looking for. Every program we bring in, everything that we do is by either people telling us what they want or finding out what the residents want and making sure that it's a good use of everyone's time and resources. Okay. So utilizing revolving funds, we do have revolving funds. We had talked about this in the strategic plan last year, that we're trying to work on repurposing our space for the way the library is used. We want to add study rooms. People ask us constantly for study rooms. We do not have any. And also mobile furniture, which we mean mobile shelving, so we can push furniture aside for if people want to work in collaboration. We can push them aside for programs. There's just a lot of things we can do, and that's the way libraries are going, working in collaboration, and also having places where people can come and work. And also, because the building is a beautiful historic building, but because it was built in 1875, it does not have a lot of power outlets. And Dan can attest that he is constantly jerry-rigging plugs to try to get to people so they can plug things in. And it would be really nice to actually have tables with plugs in them. Simple, basic things like that that would really improve the way we can, provide for the people who come in there for the community. So that will be funded by the Charles A. Anderson gift, and that's something we are working on. The activity room, which is used daily, 2 to 3 times daily by the library and also by outside organizations. We can upgrade the media system and replace the ceiling tiles, and that will all be paid for by the usage fees. And finally, we really do need a new website. The website we have is 16 years old. The new one will be mobile responsive, user-friendly, and it will just also help people to find out about the different programs and other things that are happening. And they'll be able to go and log on and use our databases or sign up for something by the new website, and that will be funded by state aid. So all of these things, we are utilizing the revolving funds, and we don't spend a penny unless we know it's something that the town will benefit from. Which brings us to the position that this is the 3rd year that we have requested this position, and the need, it gets more and more as people are coming in looking for help. The staff that we have, because I said the logistics of the building, it's a beautiful building, but it's actually 5 levels. So just to man the floors where people are going to be, you have to have 3 people at all times on a floor. If we're running a program, that takes a person. We don't have a lot of staff, and we do so much with what we have. The staff, I can't say enough good things about them. They're willing to do anything, anytime with a smile on their face, but you can only do so much. So we're asking for this position again, and if I could ask Catherine Jeffrion-Scannell, who is the head of the trustees, the president of the trustees, she's going to speak a little about the support that the trustees also have for this new position.
Thanks, Sharon. I just want to make sure that the Select Board knows how strongly the Board of Library Trustees supports this request for an additional full-time professional at the library. Under Sharon's leadership, our library has developed from a quiet place to sit with a magazine to a vibrant, busy community center with services and offerings for citizens of every age. The increase in the number of programs that we saw on the slide, almost 60% over the past 5 years, it's incredible. But the 172% increase in attendance at those programs is a real success story. It attests to the way the community uses and values their library. This library is a huge asset to our town. It's imperative that it continue to adapt and provide new services without losing sight of its core mission. Our users are coming to us with new needs and questions, particularly with regard to technology. We have a practical, achievable strategic plan with concrete goals and objectives, but it cannot be successfully implemented when our executive staff are covering help desks and answering phones. This position was needed 2 years ago when it was first requested. It is essential now. The addition of a trained professional will help us to continue moving the Flint Memorial Library forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. And if you want to move to the next slide, please. This is our shameless plug for the next 3 programs that are going to be coming up. So that concludes our presentation. We're here to answer any questions if you have them, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. And that new hire in your budget is that you've requested $52,000 for that new hire.
That's correct.
Members have any questions?
Is that a full-time?
Yes, it is.
Full-time
Full-time professional position. Yes.
Finance have any questions? Comments? Mr. Schultz?
Just real quick, I just said it to you last year, and I'll say it again. You guys are, you're a house with books, but you're a lot more than that. You're kind of a community center. And I like your programs you have after hours down the, I don't know what you call the room in the
Activity room?
Activity room.
Yes, yes.
You kind of have something for everybody. You have like I don't know, you have sports, you have this, you have that, you have like just different kinds of people that come in there and,
Yeah, but
like,
I-
yeah.
Music,
Art,
coffee
music,
house.
yeah, something for
I'm
everybody.
talking about this art.
No, I think it's great. I think it's something for everybody, and I think I don't think people realize that it's more than just a house of books. And you guys are kind of a quasi-community center, and I just want to say that publicly. Thanks a lot, guys. Yep.
I appreciate that.
You just
Thank
named
you.
off so many things I had no idea you did, so. Yeah.
It is definitely a hub, a community hub, and it's just the services that you provide to the community are amazing. And you can just see just in this budget presentation how you're interacting with youth services, helping youth services along, so thank you for that. It's, you know, everyone weaving together what they're doing is really impactful for the community, so.
A lot of
thank
community
you.
partnerships going on, definitely.
Yes, that's great,
Yes.
yes, thank you. Any other comment, questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have conservation next.
Madam Chair, through you, I believe that the conservation agent, I know that she was not able to join us this evening, and I do not believe that there are any members of the Conservation Commission here, but I'm happy just to review the very limited adjustments that are requested in this budget. And they are limited to the clerical staff, which is poised to increase $1,686 pursuant to the NRAS settled agreement of, trying to keep track of when it was, 6 months ago at this point in time. So that's a contractual adjustment that you see in there. I will note that you'll see that there is an adjustment that there is not an adjustment. However, I expect that when we come back in to reconcile the budget, there will be an increase with regard to the rate for the professional services. The conservation agent's agreement is agreement that was well past expired from a contractual standpoint, and something that we'll need to go through a procurement process for, but the rate has not been adjusted in a number of years. There's a temporary agreement that's been in place to reflect an increase, and that may become permanent, but we'll bring that back to the select board. I don't expect it to be a substantial impact. You can see it's not a large number. It's $16,000 as it is, but I do think we should expect that there'll be an increase before we resolve the budget process for fiscal year 2021. And that's the extent of the adjustments that are requested.
It's just 16, I think 1686 for the clerical. the
$1,600,
increase
right.
based on the
contract.
contract. Any questions? Members have any questions? Finance have any questions? All right, so moving right along, we'll have Board of Health. We have our Board of Health Director here. Yes. All right. We have Director Bracy here.
Good evening.
Welcome, good evening. Oh, this is, I thought this was, yeah, it's just one out of these, okay. I thought this whole packet was a credit. It's not. You already
Hey, you know, while you're at it.
Did everybody take one? You already got that?
You all set?
I'm all set.
All right,
All right.
let's hear it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Robert Bracy. I'm the Director of Public Health. I want to first start off by saying thank you to the Finance Board, the Finance Director, members of the Board of Select for allowing me this opportunity, and the Town Administrator for this opportunity for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Board of Health and the Health Department. Madam Chair, if you will, I'd just like to just kind of take this out of context for a little and just expound upon what the Town Administrator already spoke about with respect to COVID-19, if that's is okay with you.
Yes.
So I just wanted to give the Select Board just an update, again, to expound upon what the Town Administrator have already had spoken to you folks about. Since February, the Health Department has been working daily with the Public Health Nurse, the Director of Public Safety, and the Town Administrator to monitor the spread of the COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus. The Health Department, along with town officials, including schools, have been participating weekly regarding ongoing planning, the Mass Department of Public Health's best practices and community response in the event of a COVID-19 issue here in town. The North Reading Health Department has been and will remain in daily contact with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. The Town of North Reading Health Department has posted Mass Department of Public Health public advisories on 2/12 and updates on 3/2 and 3/6 pertaining to respiratory illness prevention and COVID-19 guidelines and best practices for our residents here in North Reading. The Health Department has also participated in Mass Department of Public Health statewide calls on March 2nd and March 5th, during which time the Mass Department of Public Health provided officials in cities and towns and the healthcare community with the current status of the impact of COVID-19 virus in the Commonwealth. The Health Department encourages all residents to take the necessary precautions to help prevent the spread of respiratory illnesses or diseases like the flu and COVID-19 by washing your hands, avoid touching your eyes and nose and mouth, clean things frequently touched like doorknobs, handles, light switches, cover your cough and sneezes, stay home if you're sick, and most importantly, stay informed. You can stay informed by visiting www.mass.gov/2019 coronavirus or visiting the Town of North Reading website at www.northreadingma.gov.
Thank you.
Another thing that the town officials and the Health Department and facilities have been working on, you may have seen these throughout some of the public buildings now, are guidelines or, information flyers that we've put in restrooms throughout town buildings. I believe we're getting them out to the library and other public buildings as well, just to kind of help get that message out to our residents. All right.
Real brief, if I could, just for a quick second.
Yes.
Mr. Bracy said, there is so much misinformation about COVID-19 on social media right now and on the internet. I think it's important, as you say, to go to reputable sources if you want information on this disease or whatever you want to call it, this virus, and not just, I just see so much stuff out there I cringe at. So go to the town website, go to the state website, go to the CDC. There you're going to get great information.
Yeah, the message that the town officials, the Health Department have been emphasizing and encouraging all our residents to do is go to the CDC website, go to the Mass Department of Public Health website. There's a lot of great resources on there, a lot of good information on there. And again, we don't want to deviate from the message and the science of what the professionals are guiding us to do to help protect our residents.
Yeah, I think that's important too, to just let people in the town know, and I appreciate your making that statement. We do have a Director of Public Safety here. We do have directors actively involved, working together, and systems in place for making sure the communications reach the general public and making sure that there's continuity of operation. And hopefully this will contain itself and resolve. But I think it's important for people to know that, things aren't just going to shut down and they'll have no resource, of information or of services here. So I think appreciate your making that statement.
Yeah, and again, another thing that we're, town officials and myself, schools and Director of Public Safety, more importantly, what we're working on is putting together a health department action plan with an incident command structure and a couple of other things that, we can get into at a later time. But, we are working behind the scenes. We are working diligently together as a team to, ensure the safety of our community and our residents.
That's great. Maybe that'll be next meeting presentation.
Okay.
For once you have that, plan in place to let the residents know at a presentation here.
Okay.
All right?
More than happy to do so. So I'm going to get right into the Board of Health budget. This is an outline, and in the outline, we're going to talk about the Board of Health mission, the FY20 notable achievements, impact of state and federal food codes, the retail food safety modernization grant, performance workload indicators, and FY21 budget request. So the Board of Health mission statement is to educate, promote, improve, and protect the public health and well-being of the citizens of the town of North Reading, while contributing to building a healthy community and environment in which to live in. Some of our FY20 notable achievements under the food protection program. The health department did receive a retail food safety inspection modernization grant that basically entails new food inspection software. That's another handout that I gave you, and I'll go into that afterwards. We've developed and implemented new control measures to assist and guide food establishments with the new state and federal food codes. Some of you may have heard that the health department has met individually with all establishments in town to put together what's called the Board of Health binder. And in that binder, it basically helps them achieve code compliance with all the new regulatory changes under the state and federal food code laws. And we continue to meet with food establishments on that so that we can, again, the goal here is to gain code compliance over time, and that's the way the new food codes are basically developed. We've also developed and implemented new Board of Health policies and food protection rules and regulations banning CBD and hemp consumable products within our stores. You may have heard there's a lot of products that are coming out that are infused with CBD and hemp products, which are derivative of the marijuana plant. The Board of Health has developed regulations to prohibit the sale of those in our stores here in town. Under environmental programs, we've developed and implemented new on-site sewage disposal system community education guidance for the residential community and the business community. What we've done is a lot of times the health department will get a lot of questions and concerns about the way the on-site sewage disposal systems, the way they timelined are out. So what we've done is we've put together, working with the town administrator and the director of public safety, to put a guideline together for the residents, for realtors in town and other business communities. Other things that we have done is we've contracted a new health department on-site sewage disposal plan reviewer. Unfortunately, our old plan reviewer, Mr. Martin Fair, had passed away recently, and the health department had to put out an RFP and find services for a new plan reviewer. Some of our notable achievements through community well-being. The health department is still active Sorry about that. We're still active participation in the community impact team and coalitions. We've employed a new public health nurse. We've expanded health department townwide influenza clinics in collaboration with the Walmart and CVS health and wellness programs. We've, again, to go back, developed, implemented new Board of Health tobacco control regulations pertaining to CBD and hemp and vaping products. We've developed and implemented an incident command structure for public health emergency preparedness while maintaining community awareness to increase emergency preparedness for emergency public health issues, including pandemic influenza, bioterrorism, natural disasters, and emerging viruses such as COVID-19. Public safety team inspections have been initiated with police, fire, building, DPW, and health under the direction of the Director of Public Safety. And we also continue to support and sustain the 10 essentials of public health for the betterment of the town of North Reading residents and its transient residents. Impact on the state and federal food codes. I presented this last year at last year's budget. As you can see, based on the risk categorization with the new state, or the state and food code, the old food code required about 500 or 350 hours. If folks remember, we used to have to do food inspections twice a year, annually once every 6 months. With the new state food code that was implemented in October, we have a risk categorization now where establishments are categorized as a risk 1, 2, 3, or 4, and that's basically the number of inspections that those establishments require. So in a sense, it's going to require an additional 550 hours of food inspections. The Retail Food Safety Modernization Grant, there's a packet that I put that was given to you by the Director of Finance. If you take a look at this, the Board of Health had attended a Massachusetts Health Officers Conference in October. We applied for this grant and we were successful in getting this grant. If you look at these pages here, these are the forms that we currently were using to do our annual or routine food inspections. With the grant, it's a software program, and we're able to use a tablet, and we're able to go into establishments and do these inspections now. And we have this format on the tablet. I like it because it allows us to have more transparency with our inspections, and we're able to provide the establishments with these reports right on the spot with the pictures. I think it's good because it saves us time, it reduces inspection and reporting up by 65%. So this is one of the line items that we're requesting additional funding for. We have the grant until June 30th, and so the Health Department would like to be able to continue this program. I think it's a noteworthy program for us, given everything that we're currently doing, and I think it's going to help us in the long run with continuity and transparency with our food protection program. This is just a breakdown of departments, positions by department over the last 4 years in the Health Department. As you can see, over the last couple of years, with the exception of the 15 hours that we were able to get through the Select Board last year, we're still understaffed with respect to where we were back in 2014. I think that's why this retail food inspection grant would be helpful for us. Comparison of workload or performance workload indicators, again, just to show you the comparison of North Reading with surrounding communities as far as Health Department's positions by city and town. As you can see, we're still, again, we're on the lower end. The FY21 budget, what we're asking for is, again, $2,400 to be able to fund this modernization grant, which is called Food Go Pro inspectional software. The only other issue, not issue, but the only other, I think that the finance director was going to talk about that, that we're just moving $16,648 to personal services to be able to help with the food inspection program. And that was it.
Questions, Mr. Schultz?
Bob, do you have any funding directly related to COVID-19 in your budget? I know it just kind of came up in the last couple of weeks. You probably had your budget planned.
So we're part of an emergency preparedness coalition called Region 3B. And one of the things right now we're working on, some of the funding that we do get is PEP funding. And so the coalition has put in a request to the state to be able to try to utilize some of that funding to be able to get necessary supplies if in the event that we do have an issue there in town. So we are working on that.
Okay. And that's not part of this budget, though?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Mr. O'Leary.
Just in relation to the slide on the impact of state and federal food codes, are these new regulations that have come into place or an expansion of?
These regulations came into effect back in October of 2018. We took a few months to digest the code. From January to June 30th, we worked with each food establishment. We had them come in and we worked with them on new regulatory changes. We really started to implement the food code as of July 1st, or really more January 1st of this year. We started to go out and do the inspections utilizing this software.
But my question is, the food code requirements mandated by the state
Yes,
changed?
yes.
All right. So maybe we should be looking to have the state reimburse us, since the state mandated law says if it's imposed by the state as a requirement, they should go through the state auditor's office to see if the state should be reimbursing cities and towns. So I think that's something that we should be looking at. I don't think enough communities recognize that that's a mandate that the state has to undertake and fund. And it's the state auditor's office, under the Division of Local Mandates, that is required to opine. So maybe we should collaborate with our other communities that we are closely collaborating with now, and maybe have local boards request of our state legislators and the state auditor to take a look at it. And maybe there'll be some additional funding available. It could be available to cities and towns that are currently being overlooked. So, I don't think we take advantage of that often enough and ask often enough. I don't think it's, I think the auditor's office will act upon the requests, but not necessarily go out and look at it unless asked. So we should just take a look at it.
Questions? Finance?
I'm not asking as a member of the CPC, but Dave Rudloff, 29 Dwayne Drive. How many food establishments do we have in North Reading?
With schools, churches, we have 85. That's not including townwide events, farmers markets, temporary food events that come up periodically. So I would say in any given year, 85 to, generally it's been about 100, 110 with, doing separate inspections for Town Day, with different mobile food trucks and things like that. So I would say on average about 85 to 90.
All right, any other comments, questions?
Just in relation to upcoming season for septic system inspections and things, we've covered that now, where adjustments to hours have been made, and
yes,
there'll be no real lag time?
No.
Fantastic, that's good.
All right, thank you, Director
Thank you so much
Bracy.
for the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have code enforcement. ZBA, code enforcement. Welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
We have Director Noel joining us, and that's the clicker right there.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to come before you today, the Select Board, Town Administrator, and FinCom. Today is the Select Board presentation for, of course, the Building Commissioner for the Building Department. My first slide I'd like to show. I did this last year too, didn't I? I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Mr. Al DeSalvo, our previous building commissioner. Building inspector. He worked hard, and his dedication for the building department is one of the reasons and a testament of our success here. And I would like to recognize Michael Gilberto and Mike Murphy for the outstanding support they gave us during this difficult time. So, thank you. This presentation and overview, Building Department's mission, notable achievements, performance and workload indicators, FY21 budget statement, and FY21 goals and objectives. The Building Department's mission is to protect the lives and the safety of the residents, visitors, and the businesses with implementations of proper construction methods relative to Massachusetts state building codes regarding all disciplines for roughly 6,300 structures in town. Building codes and zoning bylaws are promulgated for the purpose of protecting the public's health, safety, and welfare. The department oversees the remodeling and construction of all structures in town. We also oversee the zoning bylaws, some general bylaws, and also ADA compliance, which falls under 521 Architectural Access Board, AAB. We have the notable achievements and growth for the calendar year 2019. The building department was able to continue supporting the growing economy along with the Pulte project on Lowell Road. And I think a good reason for that is thanks to the FinCom and the Select Board for basically approving the budget last year. This is the reason why we've been so successful. Implementation of the new permitting software, along with affording the ability for all who are considering filing for applications can do so remotely. Hiring a new assistant building inspector. Effectively increase fees so we are in line with surrounding towns. Continue to sustain compliance relative to the zoning bylaws. And we issued 1,881 permits. Oh, is that, yeah, 81 permits within the last calendar year. This is inclusive of all disciplines. The performance workload indicators. The building department consists of one full-time assistant administrative assistant, one full-time building inspector, one core plumbing inspector, and two part-time plumbing inspectors, and one core electrical inspector, one sealer weights and measures inspectors, and a full-time building commissioner. I'd just like to note that we recently had one of our electrical inspectors resign, so we're urgently looking to replace that void. The town assemblies consist of approximately 100 plus town-owned structures. When I say 100 plus town-owned structures, those are structures that basically are 120 square feet or larger, such as Hillview. Hillview has a couple of large buildings there, plus they have a lot of other small buildings on their property. There's collectively, according to the GIS coordinator, there's I think there's 179 town-owned structures, but some of them are just so small, I didn't want to include that in there. And we have 402 business buildings, 79 office buildings, and 5,752 residential buildings. And that number is increasing. This equates to roughly 6,341 buildings. This is our budget statement. As you can see, I eliminated lease and rentals. We historically never used. Printing, I decreased printing by $800. This is due to the new permitting system. The telephones, we increased that by $1,280. This is due to new iPads that the inspectors, I said that they're going to have, but we just actually were able to give them out today. So that it's gonna be a great tool for the inspectors out in the field. Then we have office supplies. We increased that by $1,660, and that's due to the state is expecting a building code change in calendar year 2021. Clothing allowance was decreased, and that was removed from the budget. That's because the retired and deceased inspector, and that was contractual. Our travel, we decreased that by $3,700 because we received another vehicle for the building department. Training and education, I decreased that by $700. I couldn't see paying assistant plumbing inspectors who are only working maybe 7 or 8 times a year, paying them for their training and to continue with their licensing and to continue. They basically have jobs, they basically need that license anyway, so I basically are affording that to the core plumbing inspector, the one who's there all the time. He basically is the one who's gonna benefit from that. Travel for plumbing and gas, we decreased that by 400 because that's contractual. Dues for plumbing and gas, we decreased that by 325. Historically, never showed use for it. Only thing we ever showed was $75. Other expenses, electrical, we decreased that by 530. Once again, historically spending, it's for a badge and a physical. We increased the Zoning Board of Appeals, $2,000 for training for the new board members. Any questions on that, or? Budget statement.
It looks like your decreases,
Yeah, we're decreasing quite a
offset
bit.
your increases, basically.
Yeah, correct, yeah. Yeah, collectively, the decreases with the increases work out to $2,415 in decreases. Budget statement, the FY21 budget reflects the requirements to meet the growing need of the community. Massachusetts State Building Codes, along with Mass General Law, requires 110 periodic inspections and Chapter 48 zoning compliance. We will continue to protect the lives and the safety of all in town through implementation of proper construction methods in accordance with the Massachusetts State Building Codes. The budget submitted for FY21 has increased by $1,571, which reflects a 0.4% increase. A little too fast. Permit fees and inspection revenue. You can see, due to the increase of the fees that we implemented roughly about July timeframe, we've increased our revenue greatly. So in FY 2018, we had $410,000 collected, roughly. And for fees, for FY 2019, we had $528,000. So that's a substantial increase.
Jerry, how are we doing as far as this current fiscal year? I mean, a significant portion of this would have been Pulte, right?
We had 52 permits, building permits roughly from Pulte this fiscal year, well, this for 2019, as their construction has slowed down tremendously. And the reason why they slowed down was because they have a deleterious material, a pile of that deleterious material that is just sitting there. Well, they have to, DEP won't allow them to go anywhere near that deleterious pile. So they're allowed to build one more building, and that's going to be coming August, until they actually remove all that hazardous waste. Once that hazardous waste is removed, then they're going to start building again, and they'll be on track once again. So it actually worked out for us because the economy is booming right now.
I'm just curious as to whether or not the revenues, anticipated revenues for the fiscal year we're in now is going to hit the mark, or is it going to be less?
Yeah, it's probably going to be more. I would say it's going to be more. Yeah.
The current fiscal year? Good.
I would hope.
I would hope.
This is permits issued. Building, we issued 676 building permits. HVAC, 145. Electrical, 495. Plumbing, 301. Gas, 264, for a total of 1,881 permits. This is just building permits showing you in 2018. We actually only we've only issued 5 more permits than 2018. But you have to remember, in 2018, we had over 100 permits from Pulte. And in 2019, we had 50, or 52. So,
Do you just said fiscal year, are these tracked
I'm sorry,
calendar?
calendar year, sorry.
No, it's all right, I just wanted
Yeah.
to, it's easier way to keep track of it that way.
Yeah, it is. This is 2018 versus 2019 permits. As you can see, the red and black that are right up there, 2018, 671, 2019, 676, so it's fairly self-explanatory when you look at that graph. Any questions on that, or?
The buildings are going in, the plumbing isn't, though, the plumbing dropped.
Correct.
Haven't gotten to the plumbing yet.
Inspections, 2018 versus 2019. 2018, we performed 1,459 inspections. 2019, we performed 1,616 inspections, so considerably more. Electrical, 13 in 18. In 2019, we did 1551. That 1551 is pretty much one person on their own. And just amazing. I don't know how he's been able to focus on doing that many inspections, and he does this pretty much part-time. So, and that's why I'm trying to get a full-time, another part-time person, as soon as we can. Plumbing in 2018 was 945. Plumbing in 2019 was 910. Once again, that was because the decrease in Pulte. It wasn't substantial, but it was definitely a decrease. Gas was in 2018 was 502, 2019 480. HVAC 2006, 2019 was 252. So it's roughly a 10% increase in total inspections.
Jerry, I have a question again, just in relation to the gas. I know that there was an impact because of the National Grid issue, particularly at Pulte. So when they go back and Pulte got a permit for almost like a temporary propane service.
Correct.
They're going to, have they yet, or are they going to tie into the?
They are tying into that.
Yeah.
They have a lot of them already tied in.
Okay, and does that require an additional inspection and fee?
That will. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And we're having some issues right now, but that'll be taken care of.
But again, so part of the reason they're down was because of that National Grid delay.
That is correct.
The impact of that.
Thank you.
Labor, thank you.
This is just a chart showing the 2018, which appears to be orange. And 2019, I'm sorry, it's the opposite. My colors are terrible. So 2019 is in orange, 2018 is in blue. Correct me if I'm wrong with that, Danielle.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it should have been in the other order.
All your color chart there, it's all right.
I got a terrible time with colors. Okay, FY21, goals and objectives. One of my primary goals is to issue iPads, which we already did. This will help account for time, accuracy, and full transparency. To be cost-effective and maximize staff efficiency. Sustain awareness for all applicants regarding code changes that may affect their projects. Develop written procedures for building department. With the amount of work along with the different scenarios, this will effectively take a better part than a full year. I think it's going to take close to 2 years. There are just so many different scenarios within a building department for this development of that procedure. So it's going to take a bit of time. Increase department capabilities proportionately to the growth and the needs within the community. And that's what I'm hoping with the increase would be the additional part-time electrical inspector. Continue to create a multidisciplinary approach to help streamline the online application process between multiple departments. So, any questions?
Any questions from finance?
I think you did a splendid job. It was concise, gave good information, and you are to be congratulated.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
You never say that about us.
No, really? Okay, so we are to our joint meeting with the Community Planning Commission.
Joint meeting. The joint meeting, if you want to come up.
Oh, the joint meeting.
Joint meeting, yep.
So, do you want to?
Please.
Oh, yes.
Do you have that agenda?
I think we're just doing the appointment first. Doing it.
Oh, we got UCC?
I think
Yeah,
EDC first, right?
we're working on appointments. We are taking up appointments, Mr. Gilberto, to the Economic Development Committee.
I can offer just a brief update. Mr. Schultz certainly jump in if I've
Yes, please.
if I got anything incorrect. So we have two matters that are before the board for this evening. The first is the reappointment of Sean Delaney. His term expired earlier in the month of March, I believe, or later in the month of February. So he's up for reappointment, which would be pending before the select board. And then the second was a request by a current full member or regular member, Michael Prisco, for consideration for appointment to a associate member. So with this committee, it's unique in that there is no limit on the number of associate members with regard to it, and there are a number of associate members, I believe, at this point in time on it. If the board were to proceed with the Planning Commission for appointing Mr. Prisco to the associate member, it would create a vacancy in a regular member, which we would then advertise and bring back to the select board for action in probably a month to 6 weeks' time.
And they were unable to meet and discuss that position because of the website snafu we had, I think, 2 weeks ago.
That's correct, yes. They were
They had a
scheduled to
meeting
meet
that
that
was scheduled.
Tuesday, and they were required
They
to
meet next week,
cancel it.
Okay. So we're gonna take up, do I have a motion?
We have a motion. Madam Chair, I move to jointly appoint Sean Delaney as a member to the Economic Development Committee for a term to expire March 9th, 2023.
Second?
Says reappointing him. Okay, I have a motion, and I have a second. Any further discussion?
Did we have any other people interested? I didn't see anybody else. I don't know, was it advertised?
I think that's what they're gonna discuss at their next meeting, and then it's gonna be advertised, because if Mr. Prisco is moved to an associate position, it's gonna open up a voting spot. Right now, I don't think we have any applicants pending.
No other applicants pending? For Economic Development Committee?
If I may. There's like 4 associate, I'm an associate member, but we're only supposed to have 1 voting member from the CPC, and that's Mr. Galvin. So I enjoy being an associate member, get enough stuff going, as he does too. But there are 3 or 4 other town residents, I believe, that are associate members. And I know that this is something new that they may not know, is that Mr. Prisco wants to back off to an associate member. So I think it would be the best to try to go inside for a voting member, for someone who's been doing it as an associate member. Some would have, I think, wanted to be voting members originally, but the voting membership had already been filled out, so they came on board as.
I think that's gonna be discussed at the next EDC meeting next week.
I believe it's gonna be
Yeah.
discussed at the next meeting.
And that's why they asked us to hold off on replacing the voting member.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, I think we should go there and bring in some more associate members. I mean, it's good to have a lot of people on that board because it brings more information in, more ideas, and you can touch more people easier, so we can get out and talk to the businesses and the business people.
Yeah, you know, I'm all in favor of expanding associate membership and all the rest. I'm just, again, getting back to process in relation to appointments and reappointments, and whether the board is getting, and this is a joint appointment, everybody's getting the opportunity to see the names of everybody who's interested in either ascending up to full membership or willing to be associate memberships, and we don't have that in front of us. And again, and I'm fine with moving forward with Mr. Delaney, but I just want some clarity again as to how we're going to proceed and how we're going to be consistent in how we proceed in our appointment process. This is a little bit, again, inconsistent, but again, I have no problem with the applicant, and Mr. Delaney has been working very hard on this and deserves reappointment. Just, I don't see any other names when we have 3 other associates who may want to be considered too, so.
I would state on that, if the associates do want to be considered, they do have to apply.
Right.
That's important. Yeah.
But did they know that there was a reappointment slot up for reappointment?
Well, there isn't one right now. There may be one in about
No,
10
no, no,
minutes.
there is one. I mean, Mr. Delaney's term expired. Nobody's appointed for life, someone said. And it's true.
Do you want to hold off on his reappointment?
No, again, I'm just looking for some clarity as to
Are
how
we
we're gonna do
deviating
it
from
and
the
proceed.
process then for Mr. Delaney?
I'm asking the
Asking
question,
you.
I guess. It would appear that way, but that's, again, I'm fine. I'm
Well,
fine with it.
Mr.
I mean,
Pierce.
Probably the best, I think Chris is right, the best action that we can take tonight would be to reappoint Mr. Delaney and then allow Mr. Prisco to become an associate member, and then let the EDC tell their the other associate members that there is an opportunity, because when Mr. Prisco becomes an associate member, he leaves an opening. That's what we were talking about. That's that opening that'll exist. And then let the EDC see if they can promote somebody from, or take somebody from within who's already been an associate member for a while, is familiar with the process. So we should let them do that. So
That's the plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tonight, it would just be reappoint Mr. Delaney, and then, I'm not sure if we, since Mr. Prisco was already a member, do we reappoint him as an associate? Is that the motion that
Has he
you're
resigned
putting
his,
forward?
has he resigned his position?
He needs to resign from the full position.
Right.
I haven't received a
He did.
resignation.
He notified the town that he wishes to, he notified the
So
town.
you have a notice from him. Chief.
That was just, that's what the town administrator just told us, so.
Okay. So if he's resigned, then we can,
Right.
but he wishes to apply to be an associate member, then we can carry that forward.
Right, so that
Yep.
opens up a vacancy.
That's true.
To be advertised. And for the EDC to discuss amongst its members, so that if there's associates are interested, they would apply. Or at least make their interest known if their activity form is already on file.
And do we have a recommendation from the chair of the EDC as far as in the vacancy which has expired, which is Mr. Delaney's? Is there, again, I don't have any recommendation, none of us had any recommendation from the chair, which again is what the normal protocol is. And again, I'm not in favor of that, but, okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. McKnight.
Oh, Mr. Delaney is the current chair, and he and I have discussed excuse me, he does wish to be reappointed, and he and I also discussed that he wishes to discuss with the other EDC members at their upcoming meeting the fact that there is a vacancy left by Mr. Prisco. But he does wish to be reappointed. and he is the chair.
Appreciate that, thank you.
It would have been done at their last meeting, but for their meeting was canceled because of the website issues, and we're here today.
Okay. Any other discussion? Do I have a motion? I think you already read the motion.
I already read, but
I'm sorry.
it does not
Yes.
say reappoint, it says appoint. Is that a?
It's a reappointment, so.
He is being appointed to the current seat that he's in,
Right.
or the seat that just expired.
Okay, so
So we just need to
we
vote.
have a roll call vote. We have a motion. Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second by Mr. Schultz. It's a roll call. Mr. O'Leary,
Mr. Delaney?
Mr. Schultz,
Sean
Mr. Wallner.
Delaney.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Mr. Wallner,
Now we're on to Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Schultz,
Mr. Delaney.
Mrs. Gonzalez.
Mr. Delaney?
Mr. Delaney. Okay, we have Mr. Rudloff.
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 Delaney. Sean Delaney.
Mr. Carroll is not present, so Mr. Carroll is absent. Mr. Pierce,
Mr. Delaney.
Mr. Hayden,
Mr. Delaney.
and Mr. Ballavance
Not present.
is absent. Sorry, I'm looking at each other. Okay, so we have a joint appointment of Mr. Delaney. Our next order of business is, because of the resignation of Mr. Prisco from his full member position, as was explained by the town administrator, and the request to be appointed as an associate member. And we have heard too that that's what the EDC wants? Did we
Yes,
hear that?
and there's no limit to EDC, but Ms. Stats is a.
The resignation is not final till it is filed in my office, so I haven't received it yet.
So should we hold off?
There is no vacancy that exists until the resignation is filed.
Can you either forward an email?
What's that?
Is it,
Has it been forwarded?
can it be forwarded to you by email?
Yes, we accept them by email, definitely. So, if you.
Like this evening? Can we forward it to you?
Right now. If you do it right now, and it's got a clock, an email date, time frame on it.
You have access to it. Yeah.
Okay, so do I have a motion, or okay, is that squared away?
Yeah.
Jane's gonna excuse herself to the desktop.
Want to take a 3-minute recess?
Take a 3-minute recess.
Want to take a 3-minute recess?
Second.
It is a statute.
Who knew about the website statute? Was that you? Who knew about the website statute?
Yes, it was the town clerk.
I mean,
Too much
they have to
knowledge.
turn it back
Yeah,
on.
impressed.
It's all enclosed.
She is impressive.
Your counterpart in Barnstable says hello.
Yeah. In Barnstable?
Last name.
We're waiting on Jane, our clerk, emailing the resignation to our town clerk to make it official.
You guys make a motion, and then as soon as she sends it, no resignation. So you're all set?
Yeah.
What, do you want to go home or
You
something?
want to say 10 seconds?
Do you want to go home or something?
What about it?
That's, by the way, it's not 10 of 8, it's 10 of 9.
Yeah, that's awful.
Forgot how.
Don't charge you daylight savings time.
Well, don't let that clock.
I thought we were
close.
doing so good.
I can't help you there.
Well, if Barbara wasn't here.
I'm having the hardest time not touching my face. I always want to scratch my nose or my eyes or something. Terrible time.
Practice now, for later.
I know, it's right.
But we'll see if that actually gets the shot.
All right, hold on.
Besides, you're in the low-risk group anyway. I'm just in the high-risk group.
Well, that's the thing. I'm in contact with people who are in a high risk group.
But I never get sick.
That's right. You never get sick. Of course.
What part of Central Street was designed?
First part, up to Spruce, is it?
Park to Spruce.
Up to Spruce.
Yes.
How's that, TI?
Maybe it's just belly side. Like I said, Mr. Schultz. Please, sir. Yeah, well.
school, not so much ADA.
I didn't call for a recess, but I guess there is now.
And then you can't follow it anyway.
We don't have a quorum.
You get there, you gotta go over the curb. Hey, Kate, what's going on?
No.
So I mean, so I would say that if we're gonna do this, we should do it.
Were you able to locate it?
Something in the way.
Wait,
to
Barbara,
figure out.
is everybody still
I'll
unopposed?
explain.
If we're gonna go around.
Are all the elections still unopposed?
Yes.
Is everything still unopposed?
To be appointed as an associate, it's a resignation, right?
It's really important.
Is
My money's
everything all
on him.
set now?
It is.
Good.
I'll offer an explanation.
It needs to be done right, so there's enough room for somebody to work.
We haven't had a contested election in 3 years. I think I was the last contested election. Yeah, I don't think anything. Oh, school committee, I think, had one. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna resume, and again, just for the meeting record, we're all set with that resignation request.
So the reason we don't have a resignation request is because Mr. Prisco's term, his regular full membership term, expired on March 3rd. So he wouldn't need to resign. He did not seek reappointment. He sought appointment for an associate member, for which the positions from the board's action setting this up with the planning commission are unlimited.
Okay, thank you for that.
And I believe the town clerk concurs that
Thank
no
you
notice is
for that.
required because his term expired.
Thank you for that clarification.
But we haven't advertised the terms that expired.
We have not advertised for either regular or associate member positions at this point.
So, but Mr. Prisco's asked for an associate member, to be appointed as an associate member, and you said there's an unlimited number of associate
That's the way the committee was
members.
established.
And we are going to advertise for the vacant position, and probably this is the third time I've said it now, the EDC is going to take it up at their next meeting to discuss it with their current associate members as well. So we'll be following that process for this vacancy on the EDC. So are we set to move forward at this point? Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to jointly appoint Michael A. Prisco as an associate member to the Economic Development Committee for a term to expire March 9th, 2023.
I have a motion.
Second.
And I have a second by Mr. Schultz. Any further discussion? It's a roll call vote. Mr. O'Leary?
Mr. Prisco?
Mr.
Michael Prisco.
Waller? Mr. Schultz?
Mr. Prisco?
Mrs. Gonzalez?
Mr. Prisco?
Oh, no, he's here. Mr. Rudloff?
You got to vote.
Oh, Carol.
Oh, I vote Mr. Prisco, I'm sorry. Mr. Carroll is absent.
Right. Mr. Pierce?
Mr. Pierce?
Mr. Prisco.
Mr. Hayden?
Mr. Prisco.
And Mr. Bellavance is absent. Okay, so we have a new associate member on the EDC. And then we'll be looking forward to receiving citizen forms for anyone interested in the vacant position or an associate position, because you can come and file for appointment as an associate. And can we move on to the next order of business now? Okay, thank you. CPC.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Is the presentation already?
Is ours loaded already? It
Do
is
I
not,
just?
no.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Just as I begin the presentation of the CPC FY21 budget tonight, I just want to note that the budget was prepared alongside the Select Board's 2021 and Beyond Strategic Plan, and each of the CPC's goals and objectives for FY21 are aligned with one or more of the Select Board's objectives, and I have indicated each of these in my accompanying budget narrative. FY21 accomplishments and current projects. The CPC and MAPC completed our community master plan at the end of 2019. We look forward in the very near future to more detailed conversations between the CPC and the Select Board with regard to prioritizing our next steps. However, one very clear recommendation from the master plan is envisioning an improved Main Street. This has long been a goal of the CPC, and it was among the biggest concerns noted in the plan. A logical first step that the CPC has already begun, and which is consistent with the master plan, is to go ahead with the Main Street, Winter Street conceptual redevelopment and wastewater feasibility plan and begin envisioning a new look, function, and redevelopment scheme for the properties in this area. Abacus Architects is under contract with us and is providing ideas for how this location could be reimagined. Other work in FY20 has included completion of the Park and Ride Community Compact funded work that has outlined possibilities for transporting commuters from North Reading to Woburn, Reading, and Wilmington stations, as well as the possibility for an express bus option from North Reading to Boston. Additionally, the CPC is working with Millennium Engineering on a design for Phase 1 of a Central Street sidewalk from Park Street to Spruce Road, funded by the FY20 capital funds and the CPC's Community Development Fund. The Planning Department is also working closely with Building to implement the new e-permitting system, which has been in use by Building for routing and electronic permit applications for several months. We are now working toward completion of the remaining department modules and anticipate a full rollout of the system in June. Following up on both the master plan recommendations and our housing production plan completed in 2018, we have received grant funds for technical assistance to guide in the development of senior affordable housing on Carpenter Drive. We have developed a scope and contract for this work with a target of having a development program outlined for October town meeting. The Planning Department has also continued to provide support as the town responds to the 20 Elm Street 40B proposal. The CPC continues to work with the Economic Development Committee, coordinating consultant help in evaluating 70 Concord Street, as well as the EDC's first business community outreach event held in Kitty's in November. The Planning Department is leading the update of the town's open space and recreation plan, working closely with Parks and Recreation, and managing MAPC's consulting work in preparing the plan. The draft plan is near completion, and the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee will be looking for Select Board feedback on this draft and eventually a letter of endorsement prior to finalizing the plan in June. The plan is required for the town to receive most state grant funds relating to parks and open space. Goals and objectives for FY21 are as follows. For the master plan, in the near term, the CPC's key priorities are include various Main Street initiatives, including the conceptual redevelopment plan I mentioned, zoning, and exploring reconstruction and redesign of Main Street, and also a few of the many housing recommendations, including the Carpenter Drive redevelopment, exploring our affordable housing overlay district parcels, and beginning to investigate an accessory dwelling unit bylaw. For transportation, we would like to pursue construction funds for the Central Street sidewalk. We will plan to make an application in FY21 to the Complete Streets program in hopes of receiving funds for a portion of the work. A capital request this year has also been submitted. We would like to take findings from the Park and Ride study to bring us to the next step, exploring whether there is in fact an opportunity to implement commuter services to neighboring communities to their MBTA stations or an express bus to Boston. For economic development, to plan additional EDC business outreach events, continue supporting the cleanup and redevelopment of brownfields and other underutilized properties, including 70 Concord Street, and support new economic development efforts related to wastewater decisions to be made in the coming year. Other goals that have been previously discussed but not yet implemented include developing a database of available properties in town for use as a marketing tool and to connect potential businesses and buyers to available land. Additionally, we plan to review subdivision regulations against the town's stormwater bylaw and terms of our MS4 permit in order to ensure consistency and compliance and pursue any necessary changes. The CPC budget is a level services budget with the one exception. That would be the requested $5,000 in small capital for review of our subdivision and site plan review regs to evaluate our stormwater regulations, as I mentioned. To ensure compliance with our stormwater permit. Some master plan recommendations may be associated with new funding, but these would be anticipated to be standalone projects more appropriate for warrant article or grant funds rather than increases to the operating budget. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, now you took the prize for the
Yeah,
short.
that was great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Short and
Thank you.
concise. Any questions?
I want to stand up and applaud. More slides.
I know.
Thank you.
Any questions? Finance? Mrs. Hurlbut.
I as chair of the Facilities Master Plan Committee, and we're just finishing up negotiating a contract with HKT. It would be really useful if some of this information, such as the work that Abacus is doing, was shared with our committee. You serve on our committee ex officio and should receive notices. So hopefully you will, because I think in some cases we're going in cross directions.
Sure, as soon as our work with Abacus is at a point where they have given us some concepts that are ready to be shared, absolutely. I'm not on the Facilities Master Plan Committee, but I do receive the notices and I would be happy to be involved.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Wallner?
I'm also happy to, because I attend your meeting and I attend all the CPC ones, so I'm also happy to share that information as well as it becomes available, so.
Okay.
I just want to comment that Danielle continues to be an extremely valuable resource to a whole cross-section of the community and departments here, and has done a terrific job in coordinating a whole lot of efforts. And thank you for your efforts. Thank the Planning Commission for allowing her to do the job that she's doing and encouraging her to continue to do so. And if you need the resources, don't be shy.
Thanks so
You
much.
do a great job.
Thank you.
Ditto on that one. Very important work you guys are doing. And the master plan is fantastic, and looking forward to seeing that get implemented the way it should be implemented, so thank you.
Thank you. We would love to have a meeting soon when things are calm, which, when are things calm? But
When
we
is
would
that?
love to have a good planning joint session with the select board on the master plan very soon, if possible.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Next is our town clerk. We have clerk stats.
It's light, this is good. Maybe I'll get the record.
Go for it.
I know. Not that we want you to rush through. It's good to hear from everybody.
It is.
Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. As my counterparts have said, thank you for having me this evening. Not that we had any choice, did we? But it's a good opportunity to just present our plan to you and to the public. So I would just like to, let's see, where am I pointing to?
Oh.
No, that's the laser.
Should we get Mike Meister out there if we need him?
Hey, Michael?
You're not set up to go.
I am not.
Ah.
More IT.
Who's next? There's nobody else left in the hall. So.
I can go get it. Well, if I can log into my own, you know.
We can just follow along it, but we all have to.
Okay.
Get the
Okay.
slides too, so if you
That's fine. I'm good with it, just won't be there for the public, but in any event, I'll just read the mission statement, which is on our website. It is the mission of this office to be a reliable provider of information and quality services to the community and its residents, and to work cooperatively and in concert with all departments, boards, and committees while complying with state and local statutes. So that is a goal of ours. We try to address everything, but keep in mind that, you know, we do have to follow all of the statutes that exist. So our organization of the department continues to be the same. It's a full-time town clerk, assistant town clerk, and secretary. And then to assist us, we have 2 senior staffers that come in regularly, and they do help us immensely with our routine work that allows us to carry on with other duties. And of course, during election time, we have approximately 70 election workers who are very, very conscientious and dedicated to their positions, and I am truly grateful for them, and the town should be as well, because they do perform their duties diligently, and as I said, they take it very seriously. So I'm very grateful for them, as well as my staff and my senior staffers. Some of our primary statutory responsibilities are, of course, elections, which we all just took part in, hopefully, last Tuesday. Census and residency of local, of our residents, you know, confirming their residency when they need that. Town meetings, for which we certify the actions and appropriations for various state boards, as well as other town departments and agencies. Vital records, maintaining births, marriages, and death records. Researching for people who are looking for old records. Licensing for marriages, dogs, businesses, raffles, and gasoline storage. And open meeting law for compliance with meeting notices and postings, as we recently experienced with the website issue. And our office is the open government liaison for the Attorney General for the meeting notices and open meeting law. Ethics, we are the liaison for local compliance, and we distribute all of the ethics, conflict of interest summaries, and online training to all town employees and board and committee members on an annual basis. And for public records, we are the primary records access office, and we distribute any requests to various departments for compliance with the public records law, and providing the information requested by any parties that do so under the statutory requirements. And we administer oaths to all public officials and board and committee members. So the town clerk's budget and the records budget go hand in hand to a certain degree, but our budget really fluctuates, as I've said over and over again each year, based on the number of elections each year. That's the driving force, because that's the biggest budget issue. This current fiscal year, we do have 2 elections. One was last week, the presidential primary, and the other one is coming up this May, our annual town election. And in FY21, we will be looking at 3 elections, beginning with the September 1st state primary, the November 3rd presidential election, and the May 2021 town election. The November state election will include 2 weeks of early voting, just as we've experienced, you know, recently for the presidential primary. We had 1 week. That is in the statute. There is no question that that will occur. So when you add in funding for early voting, it really adds another, almost like another election to the mix as far as having staffing there and the preparations and everything. The budget does fluctuate again because more elections means more salaries for the election workers, training. The early voting, as I said, has an impact. Police details, perhaps DPW overtime. That primarily comes into play with the November election. There is a huge number of ballots to move around, and we have enlisted the help of the DPW to help us move those, you know, whether it's from town hall to the polling place or coming back at night at the end of the election. It's more than a police officer can deal with, but they are transported under the police officer's guidance.
Mr. Schultz?
On that front, the early voting we just had for the presidential primary, what type of, two-part question, what type of turnout did we get for the early voting? And did you get any calls of people that wanted to change their vote after some candidates dropped out while that voting was ongoing?
Absolutely.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. We had what I would consider a fairly low turnout for the number of people. It was 6.73% over 5 days. There was only 5 days.
Of the electorate or the people who voted?
Early voting.
Early voting.
Early voting.
Okay. No, is that of the people who voted or of the whole town?
Of the whole town.
Okay.
Of the registered
And
voters.
did you receive, how many calls did you receive from people wanting to change their votes?
We received several,
Did you?
you know, and people asked me at the polls on election day. With early voting, it's set in the statute that once you vote early, your ballot is cast. There is no taking it back. People were calling, asking if they could recall their ballot because their candidate had since dropped out. And that can't happen. It's clear in the statute that you cannot recall your ballot or, you know, pull it out. So, unfortunately, that's one of the pitfalls of holding early voting for an election such as this primary, where the list of candidates, as you saw, certainly on one ballot, and you know, all of the ballots had many candidates, but the Democratic primary ballot had a great number, many of whom had already dropped out before our primary, but
And what was the total, if it was 6.6 and change for early, what was the total turnout?
the total turnout was only like 39%.
So the vast majority voted on election day?
Yes, they
Okay.
did. Yes, they
Right.
did. 39%. Yeah, and I think it's primarily for that reason, because a lot of people knew that, you know, some candidates may not still be on the ballot by the time the, you know, a regular day came. So between the South Carolina primary and the final debate for the Democratic candidates, I think a lot of people were waiting to see those outcomes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's an important thing to have in case you're traveling or away.
If you
so that
are-
you can
If you
cast
are
your
away, absentee balloting is always available, and the ballots are actually available 3 weeks ahead of an
Okay.
election, you know, even further ahead. But again, you know, you do run the risk of your candidate dropping out by election day. But absentee balloting would cover anybody who is legitimately out of town. Early voting, you do not have to have a reason to vote early. You can come in just because it's a convenience, and that's the primary comment that we get from people with early voting, is what a convenience it is. So, and that wasn't a planned early vote period. It was actually passed. We did not expect to have early voting for that primary, but it was passed in the state's supplemental budget as an add-on. So it was as late as January, I believe, when we found out, meaning the clerk world.
And are we made whole on these?
We are made mostly whole. I anticipate it. The state auditor's office has declared early voting to be an unfunded mandate. So for certainly every November election, when we have a state election, we do get reimbursed for certain costs, the majority of the costs, but not for additional costs that we might use or hold perhaps extra hours such as we do on Tuesday evenings, we did last week, to give people who may be coming from work a chance to vote, who are not able to come during the day. In the November election time period, we've historically, the 2 times we've had early voting, had extra hours on, again, Tuesday evenings of the 2 weeks and the Saturday in between the 2 weeks. There are definitive time frames for early voting to take place, so we can't start any sooner or end any later than what is established by the state, but we can do more in between. So those additional hours are not reimbursed because they're not mandated under the statute, as well as if we have, for instance, I choose to have a police detail when we hold hours outside of the normal time period for town hall, and that is not reimbursable. Okay. So, of course, the additional elections impacts office overtime also, as well as advertising costs because there's more notices to put out. Programming costs for election equipment is impacted. And in my budget, there is printing for census goes up annually, you know, just as it does everywhere. And there is an increase of election-related mailings during heavier election years. You know, when you hit a presidential election, of course, you get more people interested in registering to vote, and that causes us to send out more acknowledgement notices to say we've received your registration and you're registered in time for the election. And those are required, again, of us to do. We do have to reply to every election related request that comes in, whether it's a change of party or a new registration or somebody has moved out of town. We're required to send a first-class mailing acknowledging that. And of course, supplies. When you have more elections, there are more needs. So that is the impact. So the next page just shows the records budget increases. And you can just see, I don't know if you want me to go through everything here. If there's any particular item that you would like in any information on.
Any questions? No?
Okay, and the elections increases, again, are related to the items that I've specified, and they are listed on the spreadsheet or the PowerPoint.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Nothing?
I just have a quick question. How's the tablet or the iPads thing working for ID and stuff that you're using at town meeting, and I assume early voting too?
Early voting.
Yeah.
They are so beneficial for early voting. They work fantastically. I like them for town meeting because people do not have to stand in their precinct line. They can go, we have 4 of them set up for the voters to come in, and we have our 5th one for my staff for the inactive voters, and they process them just as on election day with a paper list. I think they work tremendously for town meetings. We can upload the data right into the state system to record with a person there that they attended the town meeting. For early voting, I think they're phenomenal because if you did not have those devices, and we're lucky that we've had them since the onset of early voting, you would have to have a paper list, obviously, and be marking it in perhaps a different color every day of early voting, or you have a different list that you use every day. So it's a tremendous save. It has a time stamp on it, so to speak, where it records when each voter came in, what day, what time, and that's all required under the laws to know what day every person voted early too. So it produces an electronic record, and which I download, and we have a paper copy of it.
And as far as the inactive voters, their ability to, or your ability to reactivate them?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. That we take away from the regular check-in people, and we bring it to, you know, my staff to do, and that just keeps the regular lines flowing for the check-in process. And it does require a second step where we have to have them still physically sign a log stating that they swear that they do still live in North Reading. So the tablets are capable of accepting an electronic signature from an inactive voter. However, the state law still requires the hard copy signature and a signed affidavit.
Right.
So the technology is there, but the state law hasn't changed to
Very good.
accommodate that.
Thank you.
So, and we are indebted to the town for having funded those devices.
Great. Well, I think that's it, right? No? Thank you.
Questions?
No questions.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
All right, Miss Susan?
We have veterans. We are welcoming our Veterans Director, Mrs. Magner. Oh, that's great. Oh, it's a link, I see. One-liner.
I'm just giving you a little highlight of what we did last Actually, it's a very short video, but just to give you an idea, this was an aerial shot that was done in August, which is a great shot of the park, and just kind of happened to stumble on it. Somebody had done it for us.
That's beautiful. So there's the highlight.
Yeah,
That was a highlight.
It really
I'm telling you
was.
right now, quite an achievement. Terrific job.
So Veterans Services, Sue Magner, Veterans Director. So the goal for FY21 was to level fund the budget for this year. Our program description is local, state, and federal assistance, as well as outreach services utilizing local, state, and federal entities. Over the past year, can you all hear? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
The Chapter 115 cases have been fluctuating as we've lost a lot of veterans and as well as spouses. I've moved 2 individuals into out-of-town assisted living areas. I've worked on 4 aid and attendance cases, and home placement in the assisted living was 3 individuals. In homelessness, I had 1 that was homeless, and then we've had VA enrollment into the medical system of 13, funeral assistances 9, and which kind of, my mind was like blown by this one, but I literally have active 142 disability claim cases, which of 87 were done in 2019. So the accomplishments that we've done, that we've had in the department, was obviously the Wall That Heals. That was probably the biggest, huge accomplishment, and it was a passion and a vision that I really enjoyed working on this to bring this to light to everybody in town and to all ages. In coordination with that, in addition to that, the dinner this year, the annual dinner, last year, was moved over to another venue, to the Tewksbury Country Club. Typically, when I have been doing it for the past 10 years, it's been trying to raise monies to help bring the pricing of the tickets down. But through coordination with the owner, Mark Ginsberg of the Tewksbury Country Club, we put our efforts together, and I brought in all the entertainment and the centerpieces and all the extras that have to go with it, and he provided the venue as well as all the meals and appetizers for everybody there.
Where do you typically have that?
It had been at the Hillview Country Club.
Until this year?
Until last year, until 2019.
So we went to Tewksbury for
Correct.
the dinner, because the Tewksbury Country Club donated
all the meals, correct. So it was 250 is what we had anticipated, but we ended up with 270 people in attendance.
And it was fantastic.
It was great.
It was a great night.
It was a great show. So this year, again, we've coordinated again, and it's going to be, I think we're going to be moving forward. It's a long day for me, but it kind of frees up the September date for me to do other things. So Veterans Day again this year will be the 11th, and we will do the dinner again this year on Veterans Day.
Just out of curiosity, did you reach out to the Hillview and talk about that, or?
About the issues we have?
About having the dinner there?
Oh, no, I had been doing the dinner at the Hillview, but we were having some disagreements, I guess, probably not overly crazy, but it was just that it wasn't panning out the venue the way it had in the past, and a lot of changeovers with their staffing, and pricing was going up constantly, and I wasn't able to get really good pricing on the dinners. So I was actually looking for a date and a discussion over with the Tewksbury Country Club to see what they could do, and the owner offered out his date, because he was doing one on a regular basis every year, and so he offered it out for me to take over it for
The
him.
Ginsburg family is very generous.
Just to clarify, that it was a no charge at Tewksbury
Correct.
compared to a charge at Hillview.
And with me raising funding over the years at the Hillview, it was going up, you know, it started like at $20, and then it went up to $45. And it was just getting too much for people to be able to afford.
Mrs. Hurlbut.
I understand that it was very successful and it got rave reviews. One concern, however, was how some of the people might get there. Was that a problem at all?
There was no problem at all. Actually, I had a couple that I coordinated rides for to get them there. It's really not that far of a distance, so.
Well, I understand
which,
that, but I
and
think some people didn't go because they were gonna have to go beyond a few blocks.
Nope, I actually had people coming in from Melrose, and yeah, it was very well received, very well
Oh, I
received.
know it was well received.
And actually I had, because I ended up doing the seating chart as well, seating everybody. And when I did that, I actually had put like a half a table with Tewksbury, half a table with North Reading residents. And I actually got compliments and asked if they could all sit together again. Because they were getting to know each other. Because the dinner was never just for all of North Reading. It was for veterans in general in the local area to go to. So I didn't have any issues with getting anybody to any there at all.
So back to your budget presentation. So in this budget is funding for a part-time assistant, which would be what, the 17.5 hours?
19 hours.
Oh, 19
This is
hours.
through you, Madam Chair, this is a 19-hour position that is presently funded in the fiscal year 2020 budget, for which I believe we are about to extend an offer to fill the position, which is going to be some much-needed help for us.
All right.
It, you know, it's not full-time, but it does try to provide at least a few days worth of assistance, or a few mornings worth of assistance, as I understand it. And we look forward to that person coming on board soon.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay, do we have any, oh, I'm sorry.
Do you want me to go on with the objectives, or?
Sure.
Okay. So, and I guess, well, the other accomplishment, you know, was getting named Veteran Service Officer of the Year for the state.
Hooray, congratulations.
And acknowledged by Care One Dimensions as well. So that was a good meal too.
It's a nice meal, yes.
But the objectives that I'm looking at, and this is why I'm really getting excited about bringing the part-timer in, is because it'll help me to form some support groups, local ones. I mean, there's a lot of support groups out there in Bedford and Jamaica Plain and West Roxbury, but some just want to be like local with their own, people that they know in this area, and it's not as difficult for them to get to and from, to wherever, if we're doing it locally. So the objective is to do support groups for widows of veterans. I'd like to incorporate a women's group as well as bring in a group for the men. Because I think it's important. We have a lot of issues going on here. PTSD, unfortunately, a lot of drug issues and things of that nature. They do get their support services and through the Bedford VA, the majority of them. But it would be nice to keep that momentum going. So if we could offer another day, time frame that would give them something additional to kind of keep them hopefully on the straight and narrow. And to be able to provide more outreach to bring awareness to the local, state, and federal assistance that's out there. It's kind of hard to get it through just through a paper, but if we maybe, if I form like a forum, like monthly, that I could, bring that all to light for people. And continue to coordinate with the elementary school teachers, to work with the younger grades, maybe do some, get veterans to go there, read to them, or go tell their stories. But I think that's important. The kids really do take an interest in it, and it was definitely seen over the summer when we had the wall there, the wall that heals. So, and then lastly, definitely continue to coordinate with the Elder Services Director, and we definitely have a good bond there between our two departments to provide assistance and needs to ensure our aging population receives the quality of life assurance. God bless you.
Do we need to quarantine you?
Thank you.
I had nowhere to turn.
Thank you.
You're surrounded by
Great
people out
work.
there.
Does anyone have questions? Members have any questions? Members of the board, members of the finance committee? Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm a
Thank
fan.
you, Sue.
All right, thank you.
Maybe we'll get up before midnight.
It's gonna be a tough year to top this, Sue.
I
You had a
know,
great
I
year.
know. I'll work on it though.
Yeah. No pressure.
All right, our next presentation is HR.
Good evening.
Good
Robert Collins,
evening.
Director of Human Resources. Thank you to the members of the Select Board and Finance Committee. I do recognize that while I am the last budget for this evening, I'm only halfway through your agenda, so I will make it as brief as possible to get you out tonight.
God bless you.
In short...
Whatever the man wants.
In short, we provide a wide range of services to those prospective employees, department heads, and retirees. In this fiscal year, as of February 6th, we had 53 open positions. We filled 47 of them. Of the remaining 6 positions, 5 were seasonal snow shovelers, which this year we didn't need, and 1 was a crossing guard, which is a perennial difficult position to fill. In addition to that, we work on both the employment contracts for the individual employees, particularly at the department head level, the NUE, which we resolved and adjusted some of their pay rates, and the collective bargaining negotiations with all of the unions here in town. We also conducted this year a joint training along with the clerk's office and the police department on dealing with difficult members of the public. There's been a rash of people trying to get internet clicks who show up unannounced and sort of get in the faces of employees. Now, our employees do an excellent job, and under even the worst of circumstances, they're polite, they're professional, they're welcoming. But if someone comes in, and I would say to almost anyone's workplace, and puts a camera in your face and starts bombarding you with questions, it can be a little intimidating. We wanted them to know that we support them and that we value what they do, and we wanted to give them the tools so that if they encountered a situation like that, they would know how best to react. The downside is that is one of the reasons why you do see a lot of signs now in Town Hall restricting access to different parts, because there are parts that we are protecting, in my case, in my department, employee records, and in other places, certainly sensitive information that we don't want people accessing. We've also had our employee appreciation luncheon. Every year to year, we've had an increase, but this year was the biggest. We did about a 30% increase over last year. We even did a little trivia game involving North Reading trivia, which we can share at some other time. But it seemed to be very well received, and people seem to enjoy themselves. And it gives us a chance to have people sit and realize that we don't do this alone. Too often we operate in silos, which dovetails to the Golden Ticket program we rolled out last year. And we were able to draw names from a hat, basically, in terms of winners, and they got gift certificates. The gift certificates were donated by Blue Cross Blue Shield, so it didn't cost the town anything. Well, yes, everything with Blue Cross cost the town something, but it wasn't a direct cost. We also adopted new onboarding software, again at no cost to the town, through Tony Maffio at IBG, but we're also looking into other potential software uses. In the coming year, we're taking on that training vibe. We are working with our EAP provider, All One Health, who has been giving good service to our employees based upon the feedback I've been getting from the employees themselves on anti-sexual harassment training. We're due, if not overdue, for this, and it's always a good refresher to bring it in there. And because this is associated with Maya, it also gives us some potential for breaks on our insurance. So we're going to be partnering with them even more. I do want to thank, the employees and the school department in terms of the success we've been having with our insurance and our ability to keep the costs down and put a little money aside for the rainy day. The PFA has been working very well. We had a very high initial renewal rate that we were able to get them down to it in budget while still being able to put money aside for that rainy day. We're also looking to change the employee transaction form. You can't do anything around here with an employee transaction form, but the problem is there's about a half dozen different ones. So we're going to unify it. We're going to get rid of stuff we don't need. We're going to put in the stuff we do need. And we're going to get everybody on the same page. And the ideal on that is to save time, make it more efficient, similar to getting some of the employee evaluations done in a more timely fashion, so that we're doing one ETF that gets it done, they know they're valued, and we're not doing a second one on the retro as much. That saves time, effort, and energy as well. So these are some of the basics that we are doing. In terms of the budget, we're looking for an additional $600 for the recognition. The last 2 years we've held it flat, but between the increase in participation and the rates have gone up, that would get us in line with this year. We can kind of cut back on some other things if necessary to make that hold steady to actual costs. And in the past, we did not do this last year, but we had this in previous years, tuition reimbursement requests. We believe that reinvesting in our employees is the best investment we can make. It not only helps with morale, the return on investment in terms of what their abilities are is enhanced from that. And we have 4 different employees that are looking to take advantage of that, and so the budget reflects an increase in that. And I'll cut it off at there, and so give you time to answer your questions, and then get on to your other business.
And of course, one of the other things that for anyone who's still listening, Mr. Collins is also one of our lead members of the union negotiating team, the administration's team, which we all know how many hours of work that involves and how many hours of negotiations that involves. So we appreciate your service with that responsibility.
Thank you.
Members have any questions? Finance?
Thank you all. I wish
Thank you.
Thank you.
I yield my time to the rest of you in the hopes that you use it well to get out on time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there an hour time? Do we have an hour time?
All right, so we are,
Baseball game, what it is.
next order of business is the special town meeting 7 acres poultry farm update. And I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Gilberto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Am I coming through okay there, Phil? So I've provided an updated timeline associated with the transaction for 14 Concord Street based on the Select Board's calling a special town meeting for Monday, May 11th. And so this is information that I have circulated to some extent with some of the boards and committees involved to let them know of the later date and in turn the later deadline for being able to offer recommendations. Just some of the key notes that I'm going to identify here. The warrant was signed on February 29th and it has been posted by the constable. We are holding off on mailing the warrants to our residences so that we can give all of the boards who wish to review information about the property the opportunity to do so and then to comment for recommendations to be included in the warrant potentially. The target date for the environmental and engineering reports to be completed is March 31st, and that's sort of what we're working off of. That would give the Select Board the opportunity to review information at its April 6th meeting, as well as to review a draft purchase and sale agreement for the transaction. The deadline for warrant article recommendations to be included in the warrant that will be mailed to residents right now is identified as April 16th. I'm hopeful that we will not have to move that deadline up to be any sooner, and I don't think that we will. I think that we'll be able to make that work. And then basically residents should expect to receive the warrant as they normally do for a town meeting, roughly 2 weeks before. So either the Monday 2 weeks before or the Saturday just prior to that. That's when I think most folks are receiving the warrant in the mail. Assuming a special town meeting favorable vote on May 11th, the select board would be then provided the opportunity to exercise the option to proceed with the transaction, and if we've completed, assuming we've completed our review of a draft purchase and sale agreement, we'd be able to forward that along as well at that point. The deadline that we have to work against in terms of being able to offer a legally compliant offer to the current owner is May 20th, and I know we've talked a lot about that date. I can't stress enough, we have a May 11th town meeting. We have a quorum requirement of 150 people in order to conduct business, and getting a quorum at that meeting is really paramount for us to be able to conduct business. And then 90 days after, whenever we sign that purchase and sale agreement, whenever we from whenever we sign the purchase and sale agreement, the transaction must be closed. So we do have a roadmap worked out here with regard to this, and I think that we know what needs to happen, and most importantly, that due diligence work is taking place actually this week. So things are moving forward.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? No? Okay, so next order of business is to review the fiscal year 2021 revenue and expense plan.
Madam Chair, through you, as the finance director approaches the lectern, we have been meeting with the financial planning team over the past few months, and just this past Thursday had an updated revenue plan that we reviewed with the members of the financial planning team. We also were, for the first time, able to review data relative to both the departmental requests, which you're hearing through the budget hearings this evening on February 29th, and then again in 2 weeks from tonight, as well as the requests from the school committee as well, which are pending and I think have been initially reviewed, at least in front of the school committee, I believe last week. So this gives you an idea of where we are in the process right now. There is, you'll see there's much work ahead to be done, both by the financial planning team, by the finance director and I, by the school committee, and then ultimately by the select board, with the goal of having a balanced budget to recommend to town meeting in early May. With that, I will turn it over to the finance director to provide the update. And I will note we've added just a couple of slides for the new members. I know that we've talked about some of these terms. I thought it might be helpful just to give a little bit of background about what this group is and who participates, just for your edification. So, Liz?
Good evening. I will quickly go through this presentation, and if there's any questions at the end, I will answer those for you, or hopefully answer those for you. So the financial planning team, especially for the newer board members, consists of the finance director, the school finance operations director, 2 members of the finance committee, typically the chair and vice chair, 2 members of the select board, typically the chair and vice chair, as well as 2 members of the school committee, typically the chair and vice chair, the town administrator, and the superintendent of schools. What you will see in the coming slides is the revenue plan, which basically outlines the total revenues available to both the municipal and school side, as well as fixed costs, and then you'll see the school's modified level service budget number for FY21 and the municipal's departmental budget requests number for FY21. In FY20, the financial planning team decided to come up with a procedure and of how we would develop the revenue plan. And that procedure was agreed upon by all members of the financial planning team. The only item that was not part of that procedure was a percentage. Typically in the past, the revenue plan was split 66 34. 66% went to the school department and 34% went to the municipal departments. Now, with the procedure that we developed, there's no percentage that's listed. However, we do have percentages that we started with and percentages that we ended with last year for FY20. So you can see at the bottom that we had, when we started this process, we, on both sides, both school and municipal, said we would have hold harmless percentages, meaning that we wouldn't be taking more revenue away from one side or the other in order to get to a percentage level. So the percentages that were hold harmless were 67% and almost 33% for school and municipal sides. When we ended the FY20 budget process, the final percentages were 66.89% and 33.11% for the municipal side. So 66.89 for the school side and 33.11 for the municipal side. So you can see that there was a difference and there was a shift. And as we start this year for FY21, we're starting with the hold harmless percentages, and we will see where we end once we come up with balanced budgets. We begin the revenue plan process late in 2019. So typically, we start looking at figures in November, and we continue on as the budgets are developing on both sides, the school and municipal side. We have monthly meetings with the financial planning team, and we continue to make adjustments to the revenue plan as we work through the process until we come to late April and we have a balanced budget. This is just a snapshot, and for the board members that have been here, they've seen this as part of a budget presentation that typically takes place later in the fiscal year. But basically, it's just a snapshot of the revenue sources that are available, and it's also noted on the revenue plan. We don't have a total of these sources, as there's other local aid or state aid items that come into play that are not listed here. But you can see that we break out new growth for regular new growth and for 104 Lowell Road new growth. And, really not much of our revenue is growing largely year to year. But you have the full breakdown of revenue sources that we'll see in the next slide, but you also have it in your packet. And so it's rather small, so you'd want to look at the revenue plan that you have in your packet.
That's small too.
I'll call to attention that the FY20 budget column is final numbers. So when I say final numbers, they're final as of right now according to the tax recap, and we'll also see that below as well. So for FY21, as I noted on the previous slide, you'll see the breakout of new growth and then 104 Lowell Road new growth. And 104 Lowell Road new growth is down, and I don't know if anybody has any questions on that, but I'll defer to the town administrator in regards to that.
I think we got a pretty good description from the building inspector as to what's going on the site, and you are seeing that, the resultant impact on new growth here.
Moving on.
Can I have a quick question on that one? Mm-hmm. You may not be able to answer that, but I think Mr. O'Leary raised this point too. We'd shift to tax levy once it's occupied. Do you know what what is the occupancy of what they've built so far?
I don't have a number with regard to the occupancy levels, other than the first building, Building 1, is, I believe, fully occupied. I believe that Building 2 may be nearly fully occupied, and Building 3 is under construction right now. I don't think it's weather tight at this point, but it's close to it. So that's the latest that I have. I don't have numbers beyond that, though.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
So under state aid, you'll note that the FY20 1 budget amounts are according to the governor's budget. Those numbers are always subject to change when the House and Senate budget come out. And typically, sometimes we have already passed town meeting when those figures are finalized. But the governor's budget is a good estimate of what local receipts will be. Moving down under to local receipts, I want to just point out the one change that we agreed to make annually last year was to reduce investment income by $50,000 each year, as our investment income is based largely on $15 million that we have invested in a CD, which was from the sale of town-owned land, the 104 Lowell Road property, and the remaining difference of $4 million plus is in a money market accounts, closely earning the same. But as we know, interest rates are dropping on accounts, so we'll see some downtrend in that. Not so much on the CD, but however, the CD does expire in May. So we have some decisions to make in regards to this on what we want to do further with the $19 million that is from the sale of town-owned land. The other change that always seems to take place later in the fiscal year for the next year's budget is under transfers, other financing sources, transfer from debt capital stabilization. We start the year with a budget dollar amount of $300,000, and we typically increase that. In the past, it's gone to $1.2 million, and the reason that it can only go to $1.2 million is it is to cover debt service, and you can't appropriate more funds than you have in debt service, and this is for non-exempt debt service, not for exempt debt service. And the other change that's not highlighted on here, but it's just a difference over FY20, is we are using the remaining balance of the health insurance trust fund, which was money that we used to receive from Medicare Part B reimbursements, and we no longer receive that as we've changed the medical plan several years back.
This is a residual.
Yeah, this is the this is one time, this is it. You won't see this again. Moving on to page 2 of the revenue plan, it's our expenditure page, and I will call note to a few items. And once again, FY20 is actuals according to the tax recap. So for FY21, typically, as you can see, as in FY19 and FY20, we have pulled out the capital improvement plan, which was in the amount of $250,000, and we are going to fund that with free cash, as we just can't afford to have it be part of raise and appropriate. The other two items that have changed since beginning iterations of this revenue plan is reserve for abatements and exemptions. We've reduced that by $100,000. It was $325,000. We have enough in reserve for abatements and exemptions to cover any abatements that are upcoming or pending. And the other item is the snow and ice deficit. We used to carry this at $250, then we increased it to $300, and now we're going up in increments of $15,000. So we're increasing the snow and ice deficit reserve. So this is not the snow and ice budget. This is the reserve. So this is for anything that is a deficit above and beyond the $175,000 that the snow and ice budget is. So we've increased that to $315,000.
Liz, you just might want to explain that there's some restrictions on whatever we appropriate for snow and ice. We can't Go
Sure.
down.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just for the new members.
So with snow and ice, the state is very particular. And if you were to say, okay, well, you know, annually you have a snow and ice deficit of $500,000, why wouldn't you increase your budget to $500,000? Well, once you increase your budget for snow and ice, you cannot reduce your budget for snow and ice. So you need to remain consistent with that unless you want to, you know, permanently have that dollar amount increased. So by having this funding source here, it's raise and appropriate, and we raise this amount on the tax recap, but it's part of our raise and appropriate total funding available.
So it could become unrestricted or free cash if we don't spend it. But if we raise and appropriate, you know, $500,000, you can't go down. So this is the way that we've determined the best way to handle it moving forward, a few years back.
Correct, and I mean, in many years past, we've used this and then some. You know, we've had to appropriate funds from free cash in order to cover the deficit. So, you know, this is a good area, and as Mr. O'Leary mentioned, if we don't use it all, then it does turn to free cash. So, you know, it's.
You may just explain too that, you know, if we do exceed these appropriations, it comes off of the top of the cherry sheet. Right?
Or we have to have an appropriation to fund it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the total fixed cost for FY21 is $11,217,000. And you may be saying, well, why is it down from last year? And that just has to do with the reduction in reserve for abatements and exemptions. If you see if we move down to the bottom of the page, we have a breakout of school and municipal costs, and this is the new allocation that we developed for FY20. And we will see these further down below with the breakout of how the budget is distributed. And I'll just note that health insurance is budgeted for both school and municipal side at a 7.5% increase over FY20. A quick snapshot of the budget distribution. You'll see total general fund revenue, which we reviewed on the first page. And you'll see fixed costs, which we just reviewed, which was the top portion of the expense side, which then leaves $58,692,000 available to be split between the school and municipal side. And you'll see on the next slide that it is starting off at the hold harmless percentages when we take the $58 million.
Liz, I have a quick question for
Yes.
you on the municipal health insurance and on the school health insurance.
Yes.
If it's budgeted for us as well, why is ours going down and theirs is going? Shouldn't ours be increasing with the 7.5%? I mean, I could be reading this wrong, but it's 2.3, 1.5, then 1.7. And school is 3.7, 3.9, 4.3.
Maybe did we lose employees? Maybe that's why it went down.
Was that attrition or?
The school health insurance budget dollar amount is $4,362,000.
Right.
Yeah.
And the municipal health insurance is $1,768,000. I don't see where they're going down.
No, in 2019, it was 2.3. In 2020, it was 1.5.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Is that
So,
because
is that because of employees?
No,
Oh.
no. So if you'll recall last year, it's above the line, the PFA, I can do it here, the PFA health insurance contingency, that was lumped into the municipal side. The PFA's dollar amount and the $100,000 that we typically carry for the health insurance contingency, meaning if there was not so much a new employee hired, but a change in an event that someone needed to come onto the health insurance. That was the contingency that we held. So we didn't break that out last year, and we just left it in the municipal side. And that's why now it is above the line, because we're not breaking that out between the school and municipal side. So here we can see total municipal allocation of the 58,692,000 is 19,200,000. Then we break out all of the costs that we saw on the bottom of the last page. County retirement, workers' comp, all the municipal fixed costs, and then we break out municipal only revenue sources, and those are listed below, which total 2.3 million. And then we come to total municipal revenue available of 16,878,000. And you can see that what we reviewed on Saturday, February 29th, and this evening, and what we will review on March 23rd, the total departmental municipal budget requests total 18 million. So the municipal budget is in a deficit of 1.1 million at this point.
If all of those requests were to be granted.
Exactly. As the budget does not have the town administrator's requests in it at this point. And then we come down to the school allocation, and again, it's the 58,692,000 broken out according to the hold harmless percentages, and we have all the schools' fixed costs. And the school's modified level services budget submission is 33,199,000, and the school's modified level services budget deficit is 615,000. Major fixed costs, we've looked at some of them, but I'm just gonna, go over them quickly with you. So again, FY21's fixed costs total 11,217,000. Health insurance, as I mentioned, is budgeted at 7.5%, which is an increase, a 7.5% increase over FY20. County retirement is a 5.8% increase over FY20. These are some of the major drivers. Medicare, that's an error, that should say FY20. Medicare is a 4% increase over FY20. Workers' comp and general liability insurance are both 3% increases at this point over FY20. We typically, later on in March, get the exact figures, but at this point, that's what's being carried. As we talked about, the snow and ice increasing $15,000 is a 5% increase over FY20. And the regional school assessment, which consists of the Northeast Vocational School in Wakefield, as well as the Essex Technical School, is a 6.21% over FY20. And that's it.
Questions?
We're almost there. We're almost balanced.
We just need about 1.8 million. Mr. Gilberto?
So as has been in the case in previous years, there'll be a dual track with regard to the budgets, or I guess a triple track. So there'll be the work of the financial planning team with regard to the revenue plan and any potential adjustments to that to reflect conditions or opportunities to try to address the gaps in both of the budgets. There'll be the work that this board will be conducting along with the recommendations from the finance director and I at the conclusion of the budget hearings to try to reconcile the gap for the municipal budgets. And then there'll be a similar effort underway on this part of the school committee with regard to their budget. And for the new members, generally what has happened is the finance director and I have come back to the select board after the hearings have concluded, usually in April, but sometimes not until early May, depending upon the work of the financial planning team, with recommendations for balancing the budget so that when the budget is approved and forwarded to town meeting on the warrant, that it's balanced. And that is our intention at this point in time. Clearly you can see that the We've talked about some of the needs. We're a little more than halfway through, maybe more than halfway through, but we're substantially through the budget process with one hearing left. And there are a number of needs that we have heard here that are new items that clearly from looking at the available funds, it's going to be a challenge for us to address many of them. But that's work that we'll do, and we'll be back with recommendations after the March 23rd hearing.
Thank you. All right.
I'll just make a request if I could. Is it possible that the debt that we have, that you could actually do a slide on the debt and when it is intended to end, like on the various different types of debt we have out there, so you can actually see the schedule of, we're here now and it's gonna end here. Is that possible? We could,
I can do a presentation on it, or I can just send out the
Just one-
as they are debt service schedules right now.
just a one pager would be fine. I mean, just be
It's
fun
more
for-
than just a one pager of all.
What's that?
It's more than just a one pager
Okay.
of all the debt that we have. So, I can provide the debt schedules, and then if there's further questions, we can always give a presentation.
That'd be great.
And it's as
Just
of
for planning purposes, just as we start
Yes.
to talk about other plans going forward, knowing when things are gonna drop off would help.
Yes, and just so you are aware, the Capital Improvement Planning Committee reviews that annually, and so that is something that is coming in the next few weeks, is that we review the debt service as it is today, and what we can, take on as additional debt service. But the Capital Improvement Planning Committee has a policy to not exceed a certain amount annually of a debt service.
Okay. So if that's just a meeting, that'd be easier for me just to attend, then I'd be able to do
They'll
that.
present
If
to us
it doesn't.
in early April.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're gonna present to us.
I present the capital plan in early April. I don't
that-
typically present the debt service schedules.
I think that'd be a unique request.
I think it would be helpful for particularly the newer members, because it is a good experience to be a member of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, because you get a full sight as far as a picture of the debt service, what's falling off, and then from a policy standpoint, what can we afford to put back on and what can we afford to do in order to maintain it. So it's a good exercise. It would be helpful for Leanne and Rich to just get a glance at it.
Whatever the desire is, I will be happy to do that.
The one thing I would just add to the conversation is the policy position that this board has, I believe, taken since the establishment of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee is that their work is generally to fit within the standing debt, non-exempt, so not Proposition 2.5 debt service payments. So they're trying to fit the program, some $5 million worth of requests, as we heard earlier this evening, into whatever's falling off. So we've tried to hold that level, that amount fairly level, and what that has meant is that we've tried hard not to free that up for operating expenses.
I understand.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
Mr. Gilberto, because two of us are attending those meetings on behalf of the
I
board,
don't think we'd be able to go, right?
I don't think so.
If we just
Would
sit
that
as
make
an
it a
audience?
quorum for Mr. Wallner?
It's non-policy setting, just it's
I mean,
recommendations.
Again, it all depends upon, does deliberation occur? And, my recommendation would probably be, look, if there's members that want to attend, we could easily post it as a meeting, and that would
Right.
cover us with the open meeting law.
Right.
There's no reason we couldn't do that.
Just one area, I think.
Yeah.
Just be, it
And
seems
it's
like.
It's very informative.
It seems very important, and I don't mind just sitting there and not saying anything, but just to learn about it would be great.
Yeah.
So maybe.
But they will come to you, which is great. Or we will. The
What's that?
committee, the committee will come to a meeting, and they will go through the requests and the ranking, and it'll all be presented to you at a select board meeting in
Oh, okay.
April.
Well,
But you're welcome to attend any of our meetings.
Okay, all right.
I just think if
But to
you
the town
could-
administrator's point,
Yeah.
the Capital Improvement Committee is trying to fit the request into a number.
Yeah.
So that's why things get prioritized and things just fall off and get pushed out even further.
Right.
Because we haven't, the number hasn't grown as quickly as the needs and requests
Are coming in. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But also people, the departments are basically targeting things, so some of the things have been requested more than 1 year in a row.
Right.
And they're foreseeing what they're gonna need down the line. That might not necessarily be an urgent need for improvement now, but will be.
They're trying to queue it up and get it in the,
Exactly,
at least
yes.
get in focus so they can start to think
Right.
about that.
So it's not as though it's just, forget it, no way, no how, but keeping it in a queue, so to speak.
Gotcha.
That
Yeah.
it might come back next year if it can't be funded this year. So.
Right, thank
Or
you.
5 years from now, if it's a more long-term project. All right, thank you. Thank you for that. And our next order of business is the review of the Community Compact Affordable Senior Housing Project scope.
This is something we discussed a couple of meetings ago. We're fortunate to have received grant funding from the State Community Compact Program. I just wanted to provide the board a quick summary of the project that will be proceeding, and it's really a two-part project, $10,000 of which will be spent for a firm to look at some engineering on the site for the potential development of affordable housing. And then there'll be a separate contract in the amount of about $9,000 for the RFP process, which will include documenting existing conditions, which we're intending to do this month, defining the housing options, which we're intending to do in April, publishing an RFP in May and June, which would be brought back to this board probably not until May, and depending upon the lift associated with town meeting, June. Then issue that RFP and try to select some finalists with regard to proposals that have been offered. And then to award and upon action of what we're hoping will be the October town meeting, potentially award a contract for, or award a proposal for a project to develop. I'm going to liken this to the Berry property process in that we're leaving it fairly open to hear what the proposals are. We're going to try to provide some guidance based on what we believe is site appropriate based on the conditions on the site. But really, what I think this board should expect is this work will happen, and then we'll check in with regard to where we stand and what we're looking to put out. Give the board the opportunity to provide the feedback on the RFP, and I'm sure the same will be afforded to the Planning Commission as well. Then we'll issue that RFP and see what comes back and review that with the board as well. We may ask for some sort of delegation of a committee to review the proposals, which that was done by the Economic Development Committee for the 102, 104 Lowell Road parcel. Not sure whether that's the right fit for this project, but certainly I think we should consider how we want to conduct the evaluations. But the most important thing is the project is moving forward for the property off of Carpenter Drive based on that state grant funding.
Perfect.
And this is getting funneled through Daniel?
Correct. Yeah,
Daniel
she's
Jones?
facilitating much
She's
of this project.
facilitating, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for that update. Next order of business is the Environmental Protection Agency Sewer Overflow and Stormwater Reuse Municipal Grant Program, for which there was a letter in the packet. And Mr. O'Leary asked that this be considered by the board for purposes of our reaching out as well, based upon our own project, sewer tie-in, and the fortuitousness of it being available now while we're working on this very issue. So there's also a letter that was prepared in the packet for all of us to sign and be on board with, seeing if we can be in support of this funding being earmarked for this purpose, and perhaps getting some of it towards our sewerage goals here. So, does that?
I think it's a good summary. I don't know if Mr. O'Leary wants to speak to the letter he forwarded, and I'm happy to speak to the draft that we provided.
Yeah, no, just a member of the public actually forwarded it to me. I became aware of it, someone forwarded it to me, and I just think it's important, timely, and certainly would have a positive impact on what already is 2/3 of our water supply source, and the quality of water from the Merrimack River. So, I think Congresswoman Trahan and Congressman Moulton from Massachusetts, which are directly impacted, districts are directly impacted, the Merrimack River and a lot of their communities have their water sources from the Merrimack, along with the 2 congresspeople from New Hampshire, are advocating for appropriation from this congressional committee, and I just think it's important that local communities such as us who are directly impacted weigh in too, that's all. So the town administrator was kind enough to draw up a draft letter to be signed by the members of the board to forward to the chairs of the respective committees in the House of Representatives and Congress, and I can't see why we shouldn't. You know, I think it's a good idea. Again, as everybody's well aware, a lot of the more urban areas along the Merrimack River have a significant problem with stormwater, excess stormwater and sewage overflowing into the Merrimack River, and which is going to take significant resources and will never get done without federal help and assistance. And this is a start, a step in the right direction to get that assistance and funding, which will be necessary because that's an aged infrastructure up at some of these communities up in the northern part of the Merrimack River, which again has a direct impact on the quality of water. So I just think it would be a good idea for us to weigh in as local leaders.
And just with regard to the draft letter, I just want to recognize the DPW Director, Pat Bauer. He consulted with Wright Pierce a bit on this and drafted this, and I made only minor edits to it and put it into the form I thought the board might want to see. It's being addressed directly to Congresswoman McCollum and Congressman Joyce, and my intention would be to forward under separate cover copies to at least to Congressman Moulton and his office, as well as the town of Andover, to let them know of our advocacy if the board desires to proceed with this letter. And I believe we actually have a copy of the letter in the packet for the board, and the to sign folder, excuse me, for the board to sign if it so wishes. What I don't recall is whether we put a motion in there to sign it. There is a
It's
motion.
on page 39 of the share folder for our packet. And I think it's well written. Is there, my thought on the letter, just to add to the discussion, is if we're in our own planning phase for, you know, bringing sewerage into portions of the town to alleviate some of our infrastructure issues, should we state that in the letter? You know, I mean, it's so timely that maybe
Why not?
that's what we're doing, and any of this
Why
kind of
not?
financial assistance would help
Yep.
with regard to that project. Mr. Schultz?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue you have is Manchester and Lowell have these outflows every time there's a huge rain event. Not even a huge rain event, it could be the moderate rain event. And the reporting on it is, you know, they're mandated to report. They report, sometimes I even see, we think we had an outflow, they're not even sure.
Right.
There's a great Facebook group called the Merrimack River Watershed Council, which I advise people to follow. I follow it, and they'll tell you when there's an outflow out there. You know, I generally don't like to get involved in things that involve Washington D.C. at our level, but I think this is, I don't think clean water is a partisan issue. I think it's important. And whether we want to, I don't think us putting in here we're getting sewage or not is really, it's irrelevant to this particular letter, because this talks about these other cities and towns that are putting out outflows upstream from us, and we're getting our water below it. And it's a real problem, and until these, like I think Mr. Leary may have, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you might have just stated, a lot of these systems are very antiquated in some of these cities and towns, and they just don't have the mechanism to deal with today's technology and have enough treatment capacity. So again, when you have these rain events, raw sewage is getting dumped into our drinking water, and that's not a good thing. I think the government needs to step up, and clean water, you saw what happened in Flint, Michigan. Clean water is obviously something that should be paramount, and it's not a partisan issue.
And again, in relation to tying our desire to tie into sewerage, again, the Greater Lawrence Sewer District also has outflows occasionally too. So our tying in would certainly have an adverse impact on the river. So I think it's important.
They don't seem to be as bad. I always see Lowell and Manchester are the two
No,
culprits.
they're not as bad, but they do.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that, I don't think it's necessarily, the Greater Lawrence Sewer District would be included in all of this.
Right.
So what needs to be addressed. So I think that's important. And I just think it's timely for us. If Andover has not already weighed in, if we could have a conversation with the town manager up there and suggest that the board take some similar action in other communities along the way, let's do it.
That's a great idea,
Let's be
too.
heard.
And just to, so we have facts. We're not getting raw sewage in our drinking water. It's going into the Merrimack River. Yes, that is
Yeah, I
the
never said
water
that.
source from which we take from Andover, which takes from there. But it's gone through multiple
Well, what
sources.
Andover does is when there's a notice of an event.
It's gone
they
through
shut-
multiple sources of treatment prior
Yes,
to it.
and what Andover does, though,
getting
is
to our
when there's a notice
tap
of
water.
an outflow north of there, upstream, they will shut off the intake from the Merrimack River, but it is a problem. It's ultimately, this stuff is going into the water that we're ultimately drinking. Yeah, our water's treated, but I think it'd be better, it's one of the things that I was hesitant on the board, probably the last holdout with NWRA, because I was concerned about the water source being on a place that is industry and has these sewer plants, and, you know, it's a problem, and it's not, you know, no, we're not, our water is safe. I didn't say that, I didn't mean to say that,
I
it's
just
not what I
wanna
said.
make sure
Well,
that-
I didn't say that, but I think it is important to know that you have these outflows going into the water that is our drinking water, and if we can eliminate that, I think it's a good thing for everybody.
And it is, as Mr. Schultz pointed out, Andover does an excellent job of monitoring and reacting to the outflows. It shuts it off. The Haggett's Pond provides them with several days, if not weeks, of supply. So yeah, we're in good shape. Andover does an excellent job of monitoring it and making sure that they're only taking from the Merrimack at good times. Let's put it that way. And but anyway, I would
I'm not-
appreciate the support, and I think
Yeah,
we should
Great idea.
send this
I'm
off.
not sure if there's a motion, but there's a letter for all of us. The letter would be for all of us to
It's a
sign.
motion to sign the letter.
Oh, all right. Well, do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to sign the letter to the Congressional Committee on Interior, Environment, and Related Agencies advocating for stormwater reuse municipal grant program funding.
Motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Leary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Is that on letterhead, Mr. Gilberto? Do you want to put it on letterhead?
I
or-
believe it is.
We have it.
Does it have letterhead on it? The one in the file?
The
Oh,
draft
yeah,
is not,
okay.
yeah.
The one in the packet was not on letterhead.
Correct.
All right,
13.
great. Next order. of
13.
business. Disclosure, which I think is, you're going to address, right,
Yeah,
Mr.
that-
Gilberto?
That's correct, Madam Chair. I'm aware that the school committee, through the Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations, as well as the Superintendent of Schools, are exploring the potential to lease space at the middle high school property for the potential installation of solar panels, either on the building or on a land area on the parcel. As I have said to this board before on other matters, roughly a year ago, I do own property that abuts the middle high school parcel. And it's clear to me through this process that they are going to be likely submitting a warrant article for the select board to consider, at least one article with regard to this. I have been asked a couple of questions that are procurement related in nature, and I've kind of held off on responding to the remainder until this conversation, only because I wanted just to be upfront with the select board that that I am an abutting property owner. I think key factors that make my participation in this discussion relatively low risk are that I have no authority with regard to the decision making on this. My role is only advisory, but I do have a role in facilitating discussion with town council, with assembling the warrant, with providing information to the select board as it makes recommendations. And so the board does have the option to either determine that my participation is not detrimental to the public's interest, or alternatively, I propose that the board could, I'll use quotes, ratify the delegation of responsibilities to another employee. In this case, it would be the finance director. This has come up previously regarding some ministerial acts concerning insurance for the properties, for some leases for the Tower Hill water tank, which is also nearby to the property that I own as well. But in this instance, where there's a very specific improvement that's being discussed, I just felt more comfortable bringing it directly to the board's attention so that everyone's aware with regard to it. So
Thank you.
I've prepared motions, one to make the determination, or one to allow for the delegation.
Well, you're not getting that way.
I do not have motions for that, and I don't have legal bills.
These solar panels would be on the school's roof.
So the discussion is about the school roof or potentially on open land area to the rear of the building, the so-called berm. That's something that more recently came up. I think their intention is to issue, I know their intention is to issue a request for proposals and to see what comes back before deciding. But in order for this board to be aware of what is likely to come before it, in order for this to occur, town council has made an initial determination that there would need to be a vote at town meeting to stipulate that use of the property, not just the school use, but the use for a solar panel. And there may also need to be an action taken on the part of town meeting to establish a funding mechanism to manage any revenue that comes in with regard to that. But there'll be much more to come with regard to what they're actually proposing after the procurement process is completed. But I am being asked to assist throughout the process, and I'm more comfortable continuing to do so only after this conversation. Did you locate the motion?
Okay. I did.
Thank you.
So,
Just,
Do
the
we
town
have-
administrator did disclose this at the financial planning team meeting also the other day, that he would be seeking some advice and/or consent, or both, from this board prior to taking any action.
I don't think it affects your property value 1 cent, to be honest with you.
I don't believe so, but it's not for me to determine.
I, for one, Madam Chair, have no problem with taking a vote to authorize him to continue his work.
He's not getting out that easy.
Yeah.
All right, so do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to determine that the financial interest of the town administrator in the following item, as outlined in the attached disclosure form, is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which the municipality may expect from the employee.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next order of business of the legal bills. Do you have the legal bills?
Yes, I do now. Madam Chair, I move to approve legal bills for January 2020 in the amount of $32,572.88 as follows: Kopelman and Page, General, $13,755.38. Kopelman and Page, Labor, $11,524.50. 20 Elm Street 40B project, $7,293 for a total of $32,572.88.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second by Mr. Schultz. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those are several pages of bills there.
Mhm. I was hoping I
Okay.
didn't have to read all of them. Madam Chair, I move to approve the January 27, 2020 executive session minutes as written.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any, by Mr. Schultz. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the February 10, 2020 regular session minutes as written.
Second.
Motion, and was it second by Mr. Schultz?
Mhm.
All
Did you say
right.
February 20?
February 10.
February 10th, yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the February 10, 2020 executive session minutes as written.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr.
Wallner.
Wallner. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we're on to.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the February 29, 2020 regular session minutes as written.
I have a motion. Do I have a I have a second by Mr. Schultz. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the February 29, 2020 executive session minutes as written.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Mr. Schultz. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. That's it. We're on to Town Administrator's report.
Madam Chair, thank you. We continue to solicit candidates for the Veterans Memorial Committee, the Wastewater Planning Advisory Committee, the Recycling Committee, and we'll be adding the Economic Development Committee as well. Deadline for full consideration for all but the Economic Development Committee is March 16th, and we're hopeful that the board will have the opportunity to take action for appointments on those committees on March 23rd. I am pleased to report that the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission has awarded reaccreditation to the North Reading Police Department through January of 2023, and I attached a letter that we received from the commission. I want to recognize the hard work of Chief Murphy and his command staff, as well as all of the folks at the police department who have remained committed to this process and as recognized by the reaccreditation. I'm also pleased to report the graduation of two of our firefighters from the Massachusetts Firefighting Academy in February. Brian Latendre and James Casaletto both graduated at a ceremony at the Academy in Stowe. We wish them, we congratulate them. They are working for us now and have been on a training routine, and then were in the Academy and now have returned here after completion, and congratulate them on that work. And then finally, based on the recommendation of the Facilities Master Plan Committee, as Ms. Hurlbut indicated earlier, I have issued a notice to proceed to HKT Architects Incorporated for the Facilities Master Plan. Preparations underway for a visioning session, the date for which will be announced soon here at a board meeting. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Old and new business. Mr.
All set.
Mr. Wallner?
You already heard from Danielle McKnight today when she was talking about CPC, about, we've already started to meet with Atticus, I think is the name of the provider, the architect, concerning the package treatment plant and the 2862 intersection. So that's just getting started. And they're gonna move on a pretty fast timeline, the way it sounds. And I also got to sit with the COA last week, and they wanna try to make some progress on their community compact that we've already allocated money for, so we can start to put some horsepower behind the H-Friendly initiative and get that going for future. Like we have a youth services director, it'd be nice to have a H-Friendly director at some point in the future as well, but we have to build our case for that, so that's in process. I'll also remind the town, the North Reading girls basketball team won their sectionals this last weekend, and they are playing Wednesday night at TD Garden at 5:30 for the semifinals for the states. So they're doing very well. So they can make it, they should go.
All right. Mr. Schultz?
Mr. Wallner stole my thunder, and congratulations to the girls' basketball team. That's great. No, that's awesome. I saw some videos of it on Facebook. It was pretty cool. Yeah, congratulations to the great group of athletes, and wish them well as they go forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Mrs. Gonzalez?
I just wanted to mention, unfortunately, because we couldn't have our last meeting, there was supposed to be a presentation from the Open Space Committee. So I just wanted to kind of update that we're moving forward with that. We're making a lot of progress. We have a meeting tomorrow. We're getting ready to wrap it up and move it forward and get us up to date. And so that is just moving right along.
Okay. And all I'll just say is a quick reminder for whoever's listening to us at this time. We got a little taste of spring today, which means kids will be on roads, biking, skateboarding, rollerblading, walking, so be careful, be mindful. And that's it. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All
Well,
those in
second.
favor? Aye. Yeah, I know everyone seconded that.